Chapter 177. Zhongge handed the rapier to the substitute. Sandao, who was behind Zhongge, explained, the blue dog fox wolf organized a final attack at the main gate, and the giant underground worm also participated. However, it encountered Master Zhongge and was defeated by him again. It was Master Zhongge who saw the rapier in its body and took the risk to jump into the deep pit to retrieve the rapier. Zhenjin breathed a sigh of relief. It's finally back. I was worried that Zhongge would keep the rapier in his hands. The substitute nodded and looked at Zhongge. It must have been a wonderful battle. Thank you. It came back just in time. Now we can pursue it. What? We still want to pursue it? Zhenjin was secretly shocked. However, the substitute's next words were reasonable. If they left it alone, it would be more dangerous in the future. It was better to attack now. The remaining magical beasts were very weak. The substitute asked for help, but wherever he looked, people would lower their heads or turn to look at the people next to them to avoid his gaze. The substitute was very firm. Okay, you have your own choice. I won't force you. However, even if I'm alone, I'll still take care of the blue dog fox wolf. Master, ZD exclaimed in a low voice. The others were also moved. Zhenjin secretly glared. You're looking for death, bastard. Do you know how much we pay to buy you? Lan Zhao, Zhongge, and Sandao all stood up and chose to attack together with Zhenjin. This group of fools went into the forest to chase the magical beast army. They're looking for death. They're crazy. We just suffered a crushing defeat. Even the camp was burned down. Zhenjin was furious, but he couldn't refute. In fact, he also thought that the substitute's words were reasonable. At the very least, you have to heal his injuries. ZD insisted and stopped the substitute. I have to race against time. The substitute shook his head. ZD stared at the substitute, as if she had forgotten everything around her. Her beautiful amethyst-like eyes were filled with tears. ZD must have been very worried about me when I didn't appear earlier. Actually, I had a lot of confidence, as long as someone attracted the firepower for me. But I can't tell her this. I can only make her worry about me. The double also stared at ZD. A sense of guilt, as well as a strong sense of affection, rose in the double's heart. The next moment, the substitute slowly embraced ZD in his arms. When Zhenjin saw this scene, his eyes immediately spat fire. Hugging again. You're hugging my fiancé again. And this time in front of so many people. You're dead. You're dead. Zhenjin was furious, roaring in his heart. ZD's body trembled slightly. Zhenjin pressed his nose against ZD's ear and said softly, Wait for me to come back. I promise you, I will come back. After saying this, Zhenjin let go of ZD and turned to leave. Zhongge and the others followed closely behind. The others were stunned, speechless, as they watched the four of them walk away. Zhenjin was panting, so angry that he felt dizzy. Hurry up and die. I don't want to see you again. It's best if you die together with those two evil blue dog fox wolf. That's what a hero is. Someone sighed from the bottom of his heart. These words touched the deepest part of Baya's heart. The young man shouted, Sir, wait for me. Baya rushed out of the crowd, no longer hesitating. At this moment, the spirit of adventure and glory filled his heart, making him lose his mind. Quickly stop him. ZD immediately ordered. Go rest, brat. Shisua gently hooked his foot, tripping Baya to the ground. You're going to die. Baya got up, still wanting to follow Zhenjin. I want to become a knight. How can a knight retreat? Courage is not foolishness, young man. Song Su sighed and persuaded. Maybe one day you will become a knight. But you're just a mortal now, and this is the romance of a knight. Baya still wanted to say something. Shut up. Zhenjin knocked Baya unconscious with a single strike, his face filled with shame and anger. You want to seek the glory of a knight? Humph. Zhenjin coldly snorted in his heart, feeling more and more angry. This anger was complicated. Even he didn't realize that his anger was mixed with admiration and envy for the substitute. Just as the substitute, Zhongge, and the others were chasing the blue dog fox wolf, Zhenjin and ZD quarreled again. I don't want to see you throwing yourself at him again. You know what I mean? Zhenjin, sternly warned ZD. ZD shook her head, looking at Jin with an innocent and wrong gaze. Sir, please don't use such words. I've never thrown myself at him. I know, but you've never refused. Jin walked in circles, looking very irritable. Sir, if I dodge, won't it be too suspicious? ZD retorted. How do you want me to deal with it, so that we can continue with our plan? Please teach me. Jin was speechless. He became angry out of humiliation. I don't care about that. Do you know? When he hugged you, I could barely control myself. Anger rushed to the top of my head, and every time I had the urge to kill him and everyone else. Lord Jin. ZD shook her head, looking speechless. I understand, but can you put away your jealousy? He doesn't deserve to make you jealous. He's just a substitute, a pitiful tool that we kept in the dark. Everything he did was to pave the way for you in the future. After ZD's persuasion and comfort, Jin finally calmed down. I forgot myself. You're right. He's just a tool. A very useful tool. But it's a pity he probably won't come back this time. ZD was taken aback. Then, she revealed a sad and worried expression. Jin keenly caught the change in ZD's expression, and he suddenly had a bad feeling. Wait. He stared at ZD. What are you thinking? My fiancé. Are you worried about him? Worried about a substitute? A chess piece? ZD immediately glared, and her previous expression suddenly disappeared. My lord, what's wrong with you? Am I wrong to be worried about him? If he dies, all our previous investments will go down the drain. It will also have a great impact on our future. After all, he's a silver knight, and you're only a black iron knight. A strong sense of shame and anger suddenly rushed to Jin's head, and he couldn't help but stare at ZD. I'll become a silver knight sooner or later. ZD seemed to realize that she had said something wrong, and hurriedly tried to remedy it. My lord, your talent is obvious, and being a gold knight is definitely not your end. I'm sorry, I'm just nervous. If a substitute dies, how can we guarantee our safety? How can we escape from here? Jin's attention was drawn to his own safety, and he didn't have the mood to argue with ZD. You're right. He sighed deeply. The substitute died a little too early. I think we should keep hope. ZD insisted. I hope so. The hope is really slim. Jin weakly replied. But when the substitute, Zonggu, and the other three all returned triumphantly, and they also brought back the corpse of the blue dog fox wolf, Jin was really shocked. Unbelievable, it really worked. My lord, the girl ZD trotted all the way to the substitute, her eyes red, as if she wanted to throw herself into his arms. But in front of so many people, she stopped because of shyness. Seeing this scene, Jin felt relieved. At the celebration banquet, the substitute became the well-deserved protagonist. People's eyes were fixed on the substitute, and they were talking about the divine knight. Jin sat in the corner, his heart full of disdain. Divine knight? Ha! If he's a divine knight, I'll swallow him whole. Even Zonggu was fooled. Half-beastmen really don't have brains. But what kind of beast can actually grow armor? Looking at the substitute being praised, Jin felt more and more envious, wishing he could be the substitute. Then, Jin heard Song Su's words. Lord Jin himself is an excellent cultivator. His talent is outstanding. He has a noble bloodline, he's a holy knight, and he has dedicated all his faith to the Shengming Emperor. These already make him 1 in a million. But what's more valuable is that he has always adhered to the way of the knights, helping the weak, punishing the evil, and taking care of the weak. Even if he has to sacrifice himself, he doesn't violate the principles of the holy knights. He is brave and fearless, fair and just, willing to accept anyone, and sees everyone as his companions. From this, you can see his broad mind, as well as his compassionate and benevolent nature. Isn't it natural for such a person to receive the blessings of the gods? Jin fell into silence. In his mind, a problem that he found difficult to face suddenly appeared. If it was him, could he do all this? Could he? This question is meaningless. He's a beast man. He was a silver knight before his transformation. His strength is much stronger than mine. If I had a silver knight cultivation, I could also, probably. Jinjin became more and more silent. The substitute's voice then spread throughout the camp. So, not only my name, we also have to cheer for Zhonggu, Sandao, Lan Zhao, and our brave warriors. When the substitute distributed the merits and glory to Zhonggu, Sandao, and Lan Zhao, and let everyone chant the names of these three people, Jinjin was as silent as death, and his face became a little pale. The corpse of the wolf brought back by the substitute was dissected in front of everyone. ZD was very excited when she talked about the perfume. The camp was burned down, and the survivors took the wood and set off. Because of the title of a divine knight, Shi Suo took the initiative to rely on the substitute, and Zhonggu also gave up. After going through the battle together, everyone got along better, and they were no longer in two different camps. It's really done by the substitute. Now, he's the real leader of everyone. Jinjin's side. The spiders that were originally blocking the way suddenly, mysteriously disappeared. Jinjin thought of the remaining blue dog fox wolf, and his heart was filled with fear. Could it be that the blue dog fox wolf has actually been secretly following us? The blade spiders won't move randomly, and they won't run away because they're afraid of us. This is their nest, but there was no fighting or killing, and they just disappeared. They must have been taken away by the blue dog fox wolf. It took the initiative to lead the blade spiders away, and its goal is to continue accumulating an army nearby. When it reaches a certain level, it will lead the army to attack us again. A large number of monkey-tail brown bears also disappeared. The survivors' faces were filled with worry and seriousness. The monkey-tail brown bears are all gone. There are some traces of battle near the cave, but not many. That blue dog fox wolf is still following us. The magical beast army has grown stronger again. What should we do? During the long journey, diseases spread among the survivors. These sick people, although the severity of their symptoms is different, they are all very similar. Should we give up on these people? Sandao asked the stand-in. Give up? Jinjin shook his head. Without a shipwright, how can we build a ship? The stand-in insisted on seeing the patients. In this situation, what's the point of acting? The stand-in is too immersed in the act. A leader should ensure his own safety. This is the best way to be responsible for others. Jinjin secretly scoffed at the stand-in's behavior and was also worried about it. But unfortunately, he couldn't control the stand-in's actions. The disease subsided, and people began to advocate the stand-in's correct choice and wise leadership. When they reached the beach, Baya found a small barrel of rum. A bonfire dinner on the beach. The survivors' clothes were ragged, their beards were unshaven, and they looked like savages. Baya divided the rum with a serious face. Fat Tongue lowered his head and bit by bit drank the rum on the edge of the shell. Sang Su wiped his eyes. After passing through the jungle, his glasses only had one lens left, and the other side only had an empty frame. Mu Ban held an empty bottle, and his fingers affectionately stroked the surface. This was the human touch. Zhonggu and Sandao whispered with their heads down. The big guy squatted on the ground, quietly listening to the shipwright song. Lan Zhao still loyally stood behind Jinjin on the beach. The stand-in looked at the night sky, and tonight's stars dotted the sky. He looked to the east, where the wilderness continent and white sand city were, where his responsibility and future hope were. Jinjin looked at the rum in his shell and sneered in his heart. Humph, rum. How can I, Jinjin, fall to this level? The rare cheap rum didn't bring joy to Jinjin, but a kind of shame. He disdainfully gave the rum to the people around him. He looked to the west, where the Shengming continent was, where his home was. The weather became strange and changeable, and the rain didn't stop. When the stand-in wasn't there, Jinjin found ZD and asked, "That night, someone saw you secretly go to the stand-in's tent. What did you do?" ZD was slightly surprised and immediately said, "I went to deliver the medicine, sir. I came out soon." "Humph, of course I know you didn't stay for long. If not, my attitude would be different. Zhen Jin's face was gloomy. Why did you take the initiative to go to his tent? He didn't provoke you, but you took the initiative to provoke him. Medicine? What kind of medicine? It's a cold medicine. It's made with a poisonous mushroom as the main ingredient. The medicine is slightly poisonous, but it can raise the spirit. Only people with a high life level can use it. ZD replied, why do you care so much about him? Cold. Does he need it? Before the transformation, he was a silver knight. After the transformation, he's a war creature. He might be even stronger than Zhongge. Zhen Jin's gaze became sharp, as if he wanted to see through the deepest part of ZD's heart. ZD shook her head and said with grievance, Sir, we can't control him now. We need to keep in close contact with him and use other methods to tie him down. I've been carrying out the plan we agreed on long ago. Zhen Jin's gaze was scrutinizing. My fiancé, there's something wrong with you. Then may I ask what's wrong with me? Everything I've done is for us. ZD's expression changed slightly, and she directly retorted. Zhen Jin shook his head. You only need to know that I'm Zhen Jin. That's just an imposter. When he's no longer useful, he'll welcome death. This damned island is not the entire world. Remember, you're ZD, the president of the Wisteria Chamber of Commerce. You're also my fiancé. ZD's eyes widened slightly. I know. Lord Zhen Jin, what are you suspecting me of? You're on your own. Zhen Jin's face was cold, and he quietly retreated. Whether it's the mountains, the seas, the swamps, or the islands, my lord's holy light shines on everything. The Empire's flag will always flutter in the wind and never fall. Nothing can stop me from moving forward. I will obtain glory, and if you follow me, glory will also belong to you. From now on, I'm in charge of this place. Does anyone have any objections? Everyone was silent. The substitute nodded with satisfaction. He led the crowd and finally gathered the remaining survivors and successfully controlled them in the first place. At this moment, the substitute showed a domineering and majestic aura that had never been seen before. Yes, it should be like this. Zhen Jin looked up at the substitute in the crowd. He was yearning, gratified, happy, envious, excited, and at the same time, a trace of fear and hesitation. After dealing with the threat of the underground sandworms and dismantling half of the pig's kiss, the shipwright designed a new ship, and the people began to build the ship. At the same time, they cleared out the nearby herds. Zhen Jin, who had been preparing for a long time, finally got the chance. He climbed up a hillside and witnessed how Jin Zhen slaughtered a whole group of scale-horned black panthers after his transformation. He's actually so strong. Monster. He's simply a monster. Zhen Jin's whole body trembled. Suddenly, the substitute turned his head and looked at him. He found me. Damn it, run. Zhen Jin's head was beating wildly, and he turned and ran towards the valley. Why? How did he find me? Did he feel my gaze? Hurry up, hurry up. If I'm caught, I'll be silenced. Extreme fear stimulated Zhen Jin, and he burst out with unprecedented speed. He ran wildly, and soon he was panting and sweating profusely. The canopy behind him suddenly shook, and Zhen Jin heard the movement and turned around to check. Is there something? It can't be a substitute, right? His speed is so fast. Am I going to die? Am I going to die? No, don't scare yourself like this. Run, run. He stopped in place for a few breaths, and the canopy that had just shook did not have any other movement. Zhen Jin's heart, however, was in turmoil. Am I scaring myself? No, it could also be a substitute. He's hesitating. Yes, he's hesitating. My memory shaped him, and he thinks he's a holy knight. Why would he attack me, his companion? But I saw him transforming into a beast again. Not good, not good. Should I directly reveal my identity? No. This will provoke him and encourage him to kill me. Run, pretend that you didn't see through it, and continue to run. Run. Zhen Jin exhaled a mouthful of foul air and pretended to be relieved. He turned around and continued to run. A moment later, Zhen Jin met up with the other patrol members. Sir Heiwan. The team members greeted Zhen Jin. According to the worst-case scenario, there's a substitute behind us. According to the substitute's combat power, the entire patrol team will be killed in 2 or 3 minutes. I have to explain first to calm him down. Zhen Jin's thoughts flashed rapidly, and he nodded at the same time. I followed the strange sound and explored for a long time, but I didn't find anything. Let's go back to the camp now. But it's still early. Someone objected. Jin Jun was furious. What do you mean by early? Do you know that it's very likely that we'll all die in the next second? Forcibly suppressing the strong emotions in his heart, Zhan Jin smiled and said, "It's about time, and we're already very far from the camp in the valley. If we hurry back, we can have a hot meal. Don't worry, we've already scouted this place. If there's a beast horde, there will definitely be traps that will alert us." Seeing Zhan Jin's attitude, the others didn't insist. "All right, let's listen to Sir Hei-wan." Someone laughed. "I always thought that Sir Hei-wan wasn't easy to get along with, but now that I've actually gotten along with you, it's all just a rumor. All right, let's stop talking nonsense and hurry up." Zhen Jin couldn't help but urge them. But in his heart, he was roaring, "Hurry up and leave, you idiots. If we don't leave now, we'll all die." Finally, Zhan Jin and the others returned to the camp in the valley in an extremely uneasy state of mind. Roar. Suddenly, the bat monkey Zhan Jin's roar startled the nearby birds, and they all flew into the sky. Zhan Jin's entire body quivered, his strong intuition telling him, "It's the substitute. It's him. He's probably really been following us all this time, and he's been hesitating whether or not to attack us. Has he finally made up his mind? Is he going to kill me? No, it can't be like this. How can I die here? Being killed by his own substitute. That's too sad, too funny." This commotion attracted the attention of the others. "What's that sound? Did you guys hear something just now? It seems like there's a bat monkey roaring." They subconsciously stopped and turned to look behind them. "Hurry up and leave, you bastards." Zhen Jin roared in his heart. He didn't dare to show any abnormalities. Success was right in front of him, and if he provoked the substitute to kill him, he would definitely be very angry and unwilling when he died. How is that possible? Zhen Jin smiled and retorted, "Bat monkeys are all in groups. Even the wandering bat monkeys that have been exiled by their own group wouldn't dare to go near the valley camp." "Let's go investigate," someone suggested. "If you want to die, I won't stop you." Zhen Jin wanted to strangle the person who suggested this on the spot, but his rationality kept restraining his impulses. Zhen Jin shook his head and tried his best to maintain his calm expression. There's no need. A single wandering bat monkey doesn't pose any threat. Was there really any movement just now? Why didn't I hear anything? The wind is blowing, and the sound of the wind is getting louder. The camp is right in front of us. Aren't some of you too nervous? Everyone knew Hei-wan's strength, and since the bronze-ranked elite said so, everyone was relieved. It should be just the sound of the wind. All right, let's go back to the camp. When he officially entered the camp, Zhan Jin's heart was already filled with tears. "I'm finally back. I'm really lucky to have survived." No, it's not enough. I have to completely remove any suspicion on myself. If I can't remove the suspicion of the substitute, I might be assassinated in the camp one day. Find ZD. Only she can help me now. ZD knew the situation and stared at Zhen Jin in disbelief. "Sir, how can you do this? It's too risky. It's not necessary. What we need to do now is to escape with all our strength." "No, how can it not be necessary?" Zhen Jin shook his head. "We need to investigate. We know too little about him. His current authority cannot be offended. If he really wants to harm us, we won't be able to fight back. He hides too well. He's too shrewd. If I didn't see it with my own eyes, I would never believe that he has such powerful combat strength. This time, you have to help me. If he assassinates me in the future, we're all finished. You and your Wisteria Chamber of Commerce will be completely destroyed by my father's anger." ZD smiled bitterly and shook her head. "Lord Jinjin, don't worry. According to what you said, the substitute has been following you all the way. But he didn't kill you all the way. You're safe." "No," Zhen Jin immediately retorted. "What if he changes his mind in the future? I'm still very dangerous. We have to find a way to remove his suspicion of me as soon as possible." You don't understand him, my lord. ZD sighed. Jean Jean stared at ZD. I don't understand him, but you do. Why do you think he won't kill me? Why? Is it because you have a close relationship with him that I don't know about? Or do you think it won't matter even if he kills me? Ha! ZD, I have to tell you. If I die, a large number of letters will be found in a few days. They will contain our secrets, the truth about the substitute. How can I not take any precautions when I go to spy? ZD's expression changed. My lord, you're playing with fire. Where are the letters? Jean Jean laughed. The letters are specially made. You won't find them easily. ZD took a deep breath. Lord Jean Jean, please calm down. I will help you, because we're on the same side. Don't do anything drastic. Can you calm down first? If I continue to calm down, I might be killed and replaced by the substitute. Jean Jean growled. How is that possible? ZD rolled her eyes. No matter how much he resembles you, even if he has the same bloodline as you, he can't replace you. The Empire has a strict censorship system, and the dukes are gods who can see through everything. There has never been a case of a high-ranking official being replaced by a substitute. But I'm in danger now. If he changes his mind and wants to kill me, who can protect me? Jean Jean continued to growl. The great pressure of death made him hysterical. Wait. Jean Jean narrowed his eyes. Your reaction is strange, my fiancé. You don't seem to worry about my safety at all. I'm your fiancé. Our marriage has already been announced. If I die, your Wisteria Chamber of Commerce will be done for. What did you just say? I don't understand the substitute. You trust the substitute too much. Do you really think he's a knight? A divine knight? Wait. Jean Jean's eyes became sharp. He stared at ZD's eyes and asked with difficulty, Don't tell me you've fallen in love with him? ZD rolled her eyes. She was obviously going crazy. My lord, what are you thinking in your head? I've fallen in love with him? A substitute? A werbeast? Ha ha. Jean Jean sneered, his face full of suspicion. Yes, how ridiculous. Falling in love with a substitute. Falling in love with a werbeast. That's too unwise. It's not something a chairman of a chamber of commerce should do. But love, it's hard to say. When love gets to the head, even the most rational person in the world will become a hopeless fool. It's dangerous, ZD. Your current behavior makes me feel that you're in danger. I hope you can see reality clearly. Even if you've fallen in love with him, it will only be a tragedy between the two of you. Think about it. When he learns the truth, when he learns that he's not a Templar Knight, but a lowly substitute, when he learns that the person he loves the most, who he always thought was his fiancée, is actually the one who deceived him the most. What will he do? What will he think of you? ZD held her breath. Chapter 178. Stop, stop, stop. ZD stretched out her hand. My lord, please stop fantasizing about being persecuted. I've had enough of it. ZD tucked her hair behind her ears and took a deep breath, trying to stabilize her emotions. After a few breaths, she said, I have a way. Lord Jean Jean, you must calm down and listen to me. Only expose a part of it? Let him think that I didn't see it clearly? This is indeed a way. Jean Jean nodded, agreeing with ZD's plan. After a meeting, whether it was the stand-in or Jean Jean's crisis, it was temporarily resolved. The next day, Jean Jean led a team to investigate the battlefield again, but found that it had been cleaned up. After the report was sent back, the higher-ups discussed again. ZD looked at the substitute worriedly. My lord, you were still on night patrol last night. Please don't do it again, okay? A huge magical beast army is probably lurking around us. That blue dog fox wolf probably learned its lesson and subdued a new type of terrifying magical beast. My lord, although you have the power of the soul, you are still alone in the middle of the night. The substitute's heart was heavy. The person who cleaned up the battlefield was of course him. This woman. Jean Jean lowered his head, hiding his gloomy expression. Lady ZD's words are very reasonable. Master, your personal safety is related to the overall situation. All this time, it was because of you that we were able to reunite, build ships together, and work together to escape. Without you to lead us, we would be scattered. You have a noble status. you shouldn't personally take the risk. Lan Zhao also advised. Song Su and the others nodded one after another. Even Zhonggu said, Holy Knight, we can all understand your feelings and know that you are brave and never shirk your responsibility as a leader. But because of this, we have to be even more careful. If you are surrounded by the magical beast army in the middle of the night, or if you are attacked by that mysterious magical beast, it will be a huge blow to your side. When two armies are at war, the commander-in-chief can't run around as he pleases. How laughable and pathetic. If they knew the real identity of the substitute, what kind of expression would they have? Zhun Jin sneered. There was a lot of progress in the construction of the ships, but the big guy went crazy, earthquakes and volcanoes erupted, and more magical beast army kept besieging the valley camp. In this difficult situation, the new ship was finally built. During the celebratory banquet, the substitute quietly left. Where's he going? Zhun Jin secretly followed. Soon, he found Zhun Jin and the big guy sitting on the hillside. Birds of a feather really do flock together. A war creature and a half-giant, they're both monsters. Zhun Jin sneered and returned to the banquet. But under the double attack of the earthquake and the magical beast army, the new ship was still destroyed. At the critical moment, if not for many people suddenly turning into beasts and counterattacking crazily, Zhun Jin would have died in the mouths of the beasts. On his deathbed, the old shipwright still couldn't let go of the big guy and pleaded with the substitute with his eyes. Don't agree. With such an idiot, what kind of noble reputation do I have? Zhun Jin was extremely opposed, but there was nothing he could do. He watched helplessly as the substitute agreed and successfully coaxed the big guy. It's disgusting to see two monsters sympathizing with each other. Jin secretly despised. Their war creature companion was dissected. ZD suspected. The arrangement of the island master can subtly change all kinds of life forms on the island. I'm afraid this is the reason why our companion turned into a war creature. Don't tell me I've also been affected. I've been on this island for so long. Maybe I've also been secretly modified. Zhun Jin was terrified, and Song Su's conjecture that these strange magical beasts might have been humans in the past made them feel even more cold. Zhun Jin grabbed his curly hair and cursed. I've really had enough of this damned place. What's the point of guessing so much? Let's quickly fix the ship and leave here as soon as possible. The reality was very cruel. The new ship was destroyed and could not sail. There was another huge earthquake, the ground cracked, and a brand new long river appeared in front of everyone. ZD proposed to go to the volcanic area and attack the center. No. Zhun Jin shook his head and said, we can wait for reinforcements. Attacking the center of the island is too crazy. The volcano is erupting there, and there's also the magical beast army along the way. We might even die halfway. We'll use the ship. The substitute's voice came. This will save us a lot of time and travel. Zhun Jin was stunned. Just now, the Shengming Emperor gave me a revelation. The substitute pointed at the river. Everyone was stunned again. Zhun Jin was so angry that he almost wanted to slap him. Do you think I don't know what kind of background this substitute has? You're still trying to trick us. Could it be that this river was created by the Shengming Emperor? No wonder we didn't die. God's will is unfathomable. Divine Knight. Song Su bowed deeply to Zhun Jin and sighed. This may be your path to becoming a hero. My Lord Zhun Jin. Almost everyone present felt their scalp tingle. They felt like they were witnessing history. If the hero's epic was sung in the future, would they also have a part in it? It's over. You idiots. Zhun Jin was full of despair. He's not a hero at all. He can mutate into a beast. He's the most terrible threat. The substitute looked around and determined that the people's hearts had changed. He firmly ordered loudly, "It's decided then. Do your best to repair the ship, cremate our companions, and collect as much food, water, weapons, and so on. We will set sail. We will go to the center of the island." No one objected. Zhun Jin roared, "Crazy! The substitute is crazy. ZD is crazy. These people are all crazy. They're all seeking their own deaths. They were forced to disembark and were attacked by the magical beast army. Scab appeared. Junjin, you're finally here. Scab, he's still alive. Junjin was secretly overjoyed. Sir, we're going to succeed. ZD quietly found Junjin. With Sir Scab's magic, our chances have greatly increased. Scab has already reached an agreement with the substitute. He will fully support you to become the White Sand City Lord. If you make a great contribution this time, it won't just be a city. Although the shipwreck was an accident, it was also full of opportunities. The substitute is working hard for us. As long as we continue, we'll reap great rewards. Yes, you're right. Junjin was worried. With the substitute in front, we'll be safer. Alas, I hope we'll succeed in the end. We have no other choice, sir. If we stay here and wait for rescue, the hope is very small. ZD said, I understand. The two talked for a while. Looking at ZD's back as she left, Junjin's eyes became deep. Traveling together made everything full of opportunities. Junjin finally waited for the opportunity to find Scab in private. Father, I'm thirsty for a confession. In the confession, Junjin confessed everything. Interesting. Scab could not hide his shock, whether it's your substitute or your fiancé. They're both very interesting. Junjin, you've made the wisest choice. But for now, let's pretend this conversation never happened. Do you understand what I mean? I understand, Reverend Father. Junjin bowed deeply. Under Scab's lead, everyone broke through the underground alchemy factory and went all the way to the center. Lightning struck the substitute to death, and Junjin held on tightly to ZD, confessing everything to everyone. The man-made magical beasts fell into great chaos, killing each other. Coupled with a narrow staircase, very few could break through. Don't panic, everyone. Revealing the truth is good for you and me. The one who died now is only a substitute. I'm still alive. Junjin began to persuade the other survivors. Lanzeo, you should understand now. I'm your master. Junjin looked at Lanzeo. Lanzeo was still holding the substitute's corpse, his face lifeless. The truth had completely overturned his understanding. Junjin turned to Baya and the others and smiled. I'm very happy that you're willing to follow me. I swear on my status as a holy knight and my reputation as a noble that your loyalty will be rewarded. Follow me, and you'll get the glory and wealth you want. Heavens, what's going on? Baya held his head, his thoughts in chaos. Song Su was silent. The orc repelled the magical beast that rushed up and snorted coldly. Shut up, you coward! What qualifications do you have to lead us? Your substitute is more like a holy knight than you are. Zhongge believed Scab and Junjin's words, because priests would not joke about faith, but he did not approve of Junjin at all. Whether you're the Lord Junjin or not, please let go of my president. Fat Tongue's expression was strict. Junjin shook his head and grabbed ZD's arm tightly, refusing. She's your president, and she's my fiancée. ZD was in a daze, her eyes staring straight at the substitute's corpse. Seeing his fiancée like this, Junjin suddenly became angry and shouted, Enough! Wake up! At this moment, several flying squirrels rushed in. Be careful, Zhongge warned loudly. Everyone's thoughts were already in chaos, and their morale had hit rock bottom. The flying squirrels' attack immediately made them flustered. Junjin pulled ZD and shot the flying squirrels with his crossbow while retreating. ZD had no intention of moving. She even wanted to run to the substitute's corpse, but Junjin quickly discovered her and immediately stopped her. Enough, Junjin growled. ZD, it's normal for young people to make mistakes. I've checked your information and know that you have no experience in love. Don't think that this is the end of the world. Think about your Chamber of Commerce, and think about the youth you still have. I don't care about your mistakes. Come with me. We're the most suitable couple, and we need each other. ZD was still struggling. Junjin was helpless and could only whisper at her ear, We'll go up to the next floor now. I don't trust him. He's already lost his mind because of the monstrous contributions. Of course, if it were me, I would do the same. who would be willing to share their contributions with others. SCA, Sand doesn't dare to kill me, but he definitely won't mind if you die. You can only live if you follow me. Besides, SCA, Sand is the murderer of the substitute. Don't you want to keep your life to avenge your beloved? Jean could only persuade her in such a desperate situation. Zidi's body trembled, and she finally stopped resisting. She followed Jean to the highest floor of the central tower. The rest of the survivors looked on helplessly. Some of them wanted to follow, but were struck by lightning right in front of them. Chapter 179. Jean successfully brought ZD to the highest floor of the central tower. Father, what happened to you? Jean could not believe his eyes when he saw Scab again. Scab's hair was white, his body was skinny, and his eye sockets were sunken. It was even more serious than when the 4 knights gave him the divine weapon. His body's condition was worrying, and his calm yet crazy expression made people's hearts palpitate. ZD's heart skipped a beat, and she suddenly understood. Scab had squeezed too much divine power from his body. Priests relied on prayer to obtain divine power. The more devout a clergyman was, the higher his rank, and the more divine power he would get with each prayer. The divine power would transform the clergyman at every moment, strengthening their body. However, the number of prayers was fixed every day. Take the Shengming Emperor, for example. He usually only had 3 prayers. Once in the morning, once in the afternoon, and once in the evening. The amount of divine power Scab received every day was limited. To invade this central tower, the divine power in his body was far from enough, and it was not yet time to pray, so he could only squeeze his body dry. It's obvious that Scab sacrificed his potential for advancement. His aptitude was greatly damaged, and he even consumed his life force in exchange for more divine power. ZD analyzed her heart. She suddenly understood Scab's frantic and urgent attitude. He had paid too much, and the price was too high. Even if he escaped with his life, he would become a cripple. When the church chose clergymen, they naturally prioritized aptitude, and he would not live for more than 2 or 3 years. If possible, Scab would not take such a risk. He would not stake everything on a single throw. But there was no other way. This place prohibited low-level magic and dochi. Other people could not count on him, and he could only go up. If he could not go up, he could not escape. If he could not escape, he would die. In the face of death, what was the point of talking about aptitude, lifespan, and future? As an intruder, it was impossible for him to connect to the central tower with his mind alone. He had to attach his spirit to the divine power, and through the divine power's strong erosion, his spirit would win in the central tower, defeating the tower spirit's control and seizing a portion of authority. Why did Scab desire divine weapons so much? This was because there was only one path in front of him. He had to use the artifact to exchange for great merit, and then use the great merit to exchange for the sect or even the gods to personally take action to save his future. Otherwise, without this monstrous contribution, even if he survived, he would become a cripple, living a life worse than death. Facing Jean Jin's bewildered gaze, Scab closed his lips tightly. He only glared fiercely at Jin, unable to divert his attention to anything else. He did not reply. Suddenly, he roared. The next moment, a blue light suddenly lit up on the 4th floor of the central tower. Then, the blue light spread and formed an oval-shaped door of light. Teleportation portal. Both Jin and the apologetic knights were overjoyed to see this. Ha ha ha! Scab laughed heartily, but soon, because his body was too weak, he began to cough violently. Father, you succeeded. Let's go now, quickly leave this place. Jin impatiently urged. Don't worry, I've already snatched half of the teleportation authority from the tower spirit. This teleportation portal is under my control and is very stable. The tower spirit can't do anything to it. Now, I have the final say on who goes first and who goes back. Saying this, Scab stared at Jin meaningfully. Jin's head thumped, and he forced a smile. Father, you're right. Haven't you always been our leader? ZD's face was pale. Scab no longer looked at Jinjin, but ordered the apologetic knights. First, put the green jade gold coffin into the teleportation portal. Yes, sir. The 4 apologetic knights each carried a corner of the green jade gold coffin into the teleportation portal, and finally, the coffin was completely stuffed to the other side of the portal. The artifact was teleported away. During this process, the teleportation portal shook violently, but overall, it was very stable. As for where the artifact was sent to, no one knew except for Scab, who controlled the teleportation portal. Scab's sacrifice was very valuable. He controlled the teleportation authority and firmly held the initiative of the current situation. Very good, very good. Scab revealed a smile, and his originally nervous expression eased a lot. Sending the green jade gold coffin away consumed a lot of magic power, but there was still some left in the magic pool. It was enough to send out another artifact, and in the end, Scab and a few others. Now, cast the fairy tale of the mermaid, Scab said again. Just as the apologetic knights were about to move, the tower spirit's voice suddenly sounded. Warning, warning. Detected loss of teleportation authority 55%, 56%, 58%, 59%, 61%. The teleportation portal is opening. The core of the artificial magic beast alchemy array is missing, attempting to close. The teleportation portal cannot be closed. Warning, warning. The loss of teleportation authority has reached 65%. The tower spirit cannot resist. It is losing, it is losing. Everyone was nervous for a while, but soon relaxed. Ha ha, Scab laughed again. False alarm. Victory is already in my hands. But at this time, everyone heard the tower spirit say, Tower spirit requesting support, requesting support. The target of the request did not respond. Warning, the loss of teleportation authority has reached 68%. The request did not respond. Initiating emergency call for help. Searching for external support. Beginning detection of authority. Detecting 10th level authority. None. Detecting 11th level authority. None. Ding. Detected 18th level authority holder. Miss ZD. The tower spirit of the Mystique Factory is asking for your help, hoping that you can lend a helping hand. Your contribution this time will be recorded. According to your contribution, you will receive the corresponding material reward under the tower spirit's authority. You will receive the goodwill and friendship of the alchemy factory owner. In the future, you will receive a discount corresponding to your contribution when purchasing the factory's products. Do you accept this request for help? Under the stunned gaze of everyone, ZD quickly reacted and replied, Yes. The light of magic sprinkled down, forming a contract array in midair. The next moment, the array condensed and fell on ZD's forehead, forming a tattoo of an array. The tower spirit said, The contract is established. Miss ZD, please assist the tower spirit to defeat the intruder and regain control authority. The priority of the target is as follows. Teleportation authority first priority. Weather control authority second priority. Artificial beast command authority third priority. No! Scab roared madly and was incomparably furious. He had suffered ZD's attack. The attack was merciless, with a roar of vengeance. The authority that Scab had obtained with great difficulty was quickly lost. The team of powerhouses from the Bloody Judgment Court and the war traffickers suffered heavy losses, and it could be said that they had perished together. In this tragic confrontation, the tower spirit was also heavily injured, and its condition was extremely bad. As the central brain, it could no longer control the alchemy factory. Most of the time, it was forced to sleep, or it would completely collapse. Therefore, when a silver-ranked priest came to invade the central brain, the tower spirit could not resist at all. To compete for authority, one had to fight with their spirit, and Scab was always at a disadvantage. What really restricted this silver-ranked priest was divine power. He had to use divine power to invade the central brain. The spirit fought for authority, and divine power was the carrier of the spirit. However, the situation was different now. After ZD agreed to help, Her spirit was accepted by the central brain tower. She was a mage who had never used magic before, and her condition was very good. Although she was only at the level of black iron, her spirit was far superior to ordinary people. Scab was a priest, and he was already at the end of his rope. He was also resisted, and his spirit had to be attached to divine power to invade the central brain. The result of the confrontation was obvious. ZD, as a new power and proficient in the use of spirit, defeated the spirit left by Scab. Soon after, the portal closed. It was not ZD who closed it, but Scab who saw that the situation was not good and closed it voluntarily. If the portal was not closed, ZD would be able to obtain the specific location of the other end of the portal through this spatial connection. How do you have authority? You've been here before. Scab stared at ZD. Jinjin also looked at ZD, stunned. ZD stared back at Scab without fear, then glanced at Jinjin beside her and sneered. Then, where do you think the Lord Jinjin's substitute was custom-made from? A mere black iron mage. Scab was furious and summoned all his strength, but he had really reached his limit. Even with all his remaining strength, he was still not ZD's opponent. Do you know what you're doing? Do you want to betray the Empire? Jinjin, do you want to betray your faith? Become a fallen knight? Scab shouted. ZD chuckled and said, Father, please don't be an alarmist. We have never thought of betraying the Empire, and you don't have to accuse the Lord Jinjin of betraying his faith. We have no intention of being enemies. We just want to have a good talk. Scab gritted his teeth in anger. He really wanted to order the 4 Guardian Knights to kill ZD. But the key point was that Jinjin was blocking in front of ZD. ZD had already seen through the situation and used this holy knight as her protective talisman. This arrangement was really powerful, and Scab did not dare to make a move. His head was still slightly dizzy, but Scab knew that this was purely due to anger. But there was no other way. He could only force himself to calm down. What do you want to talk about? Scab asked. About contributions. ZD immediately said, Father, on this journey, we admit that you have contributed the most, but our contributions can't be denied, right? Jinjin reacted and immediately added, his attitude clearly supporting ZD. Now was not the time to pursue the matter of ZD hiding her relationship with the war traffickers. I have never thought of denying your contributions and merits. Scab was so gloomy that it was about to drip water. Then, may I ask, where did the golden green jade coffin teleport to? ZD's words were even sharper than silver lightning. Scab snorted and was extremely dissatisfied. Do you think I will go back and say it easily? ZD sneered, but we had a part to play in obtaining the golden green jade coffin. Sir Priest, you just said that you didn't deny our merits and contributions, but your actions are not consistent with your words. If I was not lucky enough to obtain the approval of the Tower Spirit, Father Scab, would you have thought of abandoning us? Scab's head faintly hurt. ZD's sharpness and toughness surprised him greatly. He shook his head and spat out a mouthful of turbid air. His face was already calm. There is no need to talk about this now. Even if I explain it better, without a foundation of trust, you won't believe me. Just like how I won't believe you when you say the location of the golden green jade coffin. It doesn't matter. ZD smiled. Wait until my spirit completely destroys your imprint, and I have full control of the teleportation authority. I will be able to check the records of the teleportation just now. Scab's face suddenly turned pale. If he had full control of the teleportation authority, he could naturally erase the records of the teleportation. But his teleportation authority had never reached 100%. Ha, ZD, well done. Jinjin laughed. Maybe we can make a deal. ZD said again, her tone turning gentle. We have never thought of forcing you, Father. We also admit that Father's contributions far exceed ours. We just want to protect our own share. What do you want? Hurry up and say it. Scab was extremely irritated. He was finally forced by ZD into a corner and could only choose to compromise. ZD's gaze was deep. It's very simple. As long as Father uses the resurrection technique, you can resurrect Jinjin's substitute who was just killed. What? Jinjin was stunned. He suddenly turned his head and glared at his fiancée. Chapter 180. Jinjin was extremely angry. Any man who saw his fiancée had feelings for another man would be very angry. Jinjin had originally planned to squeeze out the value of the substitute and then let him die a miserable death. But not long ago, the substitute had already died. There was no need to be angry with a dead person. In addition, the situation forced Jinjin to temporarily forgive ZD. But who would have thought that ZD would actually want to revive his substitute? Although Jinjin did not speak again, his eyes seemed to be spitting fire, as if he was accusing her. You can't stop thinking about him like this. What's so good about him? You want to revive your lover in front of me. What do you take me for? ZD comforted him. Lord Jinjin, we must revive the substitute. Because after leaving this island, there will be no more environment where magic is forbidden. We will face a silver priest and 4 black iron ranked apologetic knights. I have already taken back a lot of teleportation rights. If I teleport a second artifact, my magic power will only be enough for a limited number of people to escape. Looking at ZD's sparkling eyes, Jinjin felt a chill in his heart. What you said makes sense. Yes, after escaping, if Scab goes back on his words and takes the spoils of war again, we won't have the power to resist. This woman is very shrewd, worthy of being the president of the Wisteria Chamber of Commerce. She thinks further than me. But is she really only doing this for this layer of calculation? Jinjin's mood was complicated, and his thoughts were a bit chaotic. Scab sneered. Revive the substitute? Holy Knight, it seems that the relationship between your fiancé and your substitute is not ordinary. When the substitute was killed by me, she was simply asking for death. Hee. Holy Knight, do you really trust her that much? She's also secretly in contact with the war traffickers. Aren't you afraid that after reviving the substitute, you'll be replaced by him? Jinjin snorted. Sir Scab, I am a noble, a holy knight. Don't try to fool me with such words. If it were so easy to impersonate nobles of the Empire, human society would have been in chaos long ago. First of all, it was extremely difficult to forge a bloodline. Secondly, there would be clerics who would use divine spells to verify the bloodline of those who held important positions. Who can deceive the gods? ZD and I are engaged. It's a strict magic contract. If you betray each other, you will have to pay a heavy price. Most importantly, the best target for the Wisteria Chamber of Commerce is the 100 Needles clan. Our interests are aligned. If I die here because of her betrayal, the Wisteria Merchant Guild will be destroyed. As for the secret contact between her and the war traffickers, what does that have to do with anything? Many of the nobles of the Empire even communicated with demons and devils and made deals in private. It's normal for such a large-scale merchant association to have connections with secret figures like the war traffickers. Looking at Jinjin, who was speaking with fervor and assurance, Scab was slightly stunned. Originally, he despised the cowardly Jinjin from the bottom of his heart, but he did not expect him to be so stubborn at this juncture. His performance was beyond Scab's expectations. Damn nobles. When it comes to their own interests, they often become incomparably shrewd. Do I really have to compromise with these two people? Scab felt that it was absurd, but at the same time, he was very angry. He had paid such a huge price, but in the end, it was an outsider who benefited. The priest was extremely unwilling. He then shook his head and evaded. Resurrection? Miss ZD, don't you have common sense in this area? This kind of divine spell can only be used by bishops. I'm just a silver priest. You're just making things difficult for me. ZD sneered. Sir Scab, you can investigate the members of the Pig's Kiss. How can I not investigate your information? In fact, according to your achievements, it's reasonable for you to be promoted to bishop now. You can already use resurrection. This is one of the clear proof of your outstanding talent. Sir Priest, I know much more than you think. Hurry up and act. Impossible. Scab shook his head. I'm just a silver priest. Historically, when I use resurrection, I must be in peak condition. My current physical condition is obvious to all of you. My divine power is not even 1/10 of the resurrection's consumption. If I forcibly use this divine spell, I'll be sending myself to my death. Zhang Jin's expression changed slightly. ZD's eyes flickered with uncertainty. How do you want me to believe you, priest? You can even invade the central tower. Tell me, you don't have enough divine power now? It's precisely because I invaded the central tower that my divine power consumption is huge. I have no need to deceive you. We're not enemies, are we? At best, we're just having some disputes about the distribution of the credit. Scab tried to ease the atmosphere. ZD narrowed her eyes slightly. Sir Priest, do you really not have any divine power? Maybe you have some left over to use against us after teleporting out. This sounds like a good idea. Scab's expression changed. While both sides were talking, his forehead was already covered with sweat. This was because while ZD was negotiating with Scab, she never stopped attacking Scab with her spirit to take back the authority in his hands. Miss ZD, don't go too far. Come here. Scab couldn't hold on any longer. His authority was constantly losing, and his vision was starting to become dizzy. ZD emphasized again, resurrect the substitute, and I can temporarily delay the attack. In your current state, you can't possibly be my opponent, right? You're forcing me to die. Scab was so angry that he was burning with anger. It's hard to imagine that I, the dignified Scab, the Silver Priest, is being forced by a mere merchant girl. This is a monstrous disgrace. Looking at Scab's ferocious expression, Zhang Jin turned to ZD and said, maybe we should choose to believe him. After all, forcing Scab to die is also harmful to us. ZD slowly shook her head. I signed a magical contract with the tower's spirit. I must eliminate or expel Scab's spirit from the central tower. As long as this step is completed, my contract will be considered fulfilled. Not only can we obtain the tower spirit's reward, but we can also greatly weaken Scab's fighting strength. Once we leave this island, he won't do anything to you, but he won't have any qualms about dealing with me. Lord Jinjin, do you think my analysis is reasonable? ZD's words were too reasonable, and Jinjin could only nod. ZD and the tower spirit forming a contract seemed very reckless. But in reality, if they didn't sign the contract, they wouldn't be able to reach this stalemate. The spoils of war would be completely controlled by Scab. So, ZD once again looked at Scab, and she urged, death isn't the end, Father. As long as you resurrect the substitute, everything can be discussed. Even if you unfortunately die, we will use this monstrous merit to pray to the gods to resurrect you in the temple. Scab sneered. Miss ZD, your thoughts are too vicious. The resurrection spell has a limit. Once the time limit is exceeded, the soul of the dead will dissipate. Without a soul, even if the gods personally use the resurrection spell, they won't be able to resurrect me. How can you guarantee that you can resurrect me in time after I die? Even if we use the teleportation door here, we can only teleport to a nearby island. ZD's face sank. This was also what she was anxious about. If not for this, she wouldn't have forced Scab to use the resurrection spell. Wait, I have an idea. We can take back the divine artifact, the golden green jade coffin. Can't this divine artifact bring back the dead? Zhang Jin shouted as he had a flash of inspiration. Scab sneered. Take back the golden green jade coffin and send it out? We don't have enough magic power. Moreover, the golden green jade coffin is a divine artifact. We have no way to activate it. The alchemy array set up by the war traffickers has already been destroyed by more than half. Even if it wasn't destroyed, this alchemy array is only used to transform magic beasts, not to resurrect corpses. If that's the case, Zhang Jin frowned, trying his best to think. His face was full of worry. At this moment, ZD once again obtained a huge victory. Scab's expression changed abruptly. He was both shocked and angry. It turned out that ZD had been accumulating power for a moment before suddenly launching an attack. It wasn't to seize the teleportation authority, but to aim for the authority to control the weather. ZD, you're very good. Scab was caught unprepared. He hurriedly resisted with all his strength, ensuring that he had the only authority he had left. The priest couldn't help but have a whole new level of respect for ZD. He originally wanted to rely on the authority to control the weather to negotiate with ZD. He didn't expect the latter to have thought of this and suddenly attacked, intending to take away Scab's trump card. Seeing that ZD's spirit was winning, he was about to lose this bargaining chip. Scab had no choice but to attack in advance. "You forced me to do this," Scab roared, using the authority to control the weather, bursting out bolts of lightning. ZD gritted her teeth and used the authority she had just seized to try to stop the bursting of lightning. Kacha, kacha. The lightning turned from dense to sparse. Where the lightning fell, the man-made magic beasts either died tragically or were heavily injured. What's going on? The survivors on the third floor were bewildered. Previously, the conversation between the Tower Genie and ZD had let them know that something had happened on the fourth floor. However, no one dared to take the risk. "Tower Genie, come and help me." ZD saw that she couldn't stop the lightning and could only call for reinforcements. The Tower Genie appeared and intervened in the confrontation between ZD and Scab. However, to their surprise, the Tower Genie didn't directly help ZD. Instead, it took the opportunity to control the lightning and let it escape from Scab's control, turning it into a chaotic lightning. Sandow was caught off guard and was almost struck by lightning. "What happened on the fourth floor?" "Father Scab, why did you strike us?" The survivors fell into chaos. Scab's voice came, "I can't control the lightning anymore. ZD, this is all your fault. Your companions will be struck to death because of you." ZD quickly responded, "Hide near the blood core. Within 3 meters of the blood core, it's a safe zone." Everyone was reminded and quickly shrank around the blood core. Cyanobacteria carried the body of the substitute and rushed over. Zongu and a few others took the risk of dragging the big guy, who was still twitching, into the crowd. Chapter 181. Lightning continued to strike, reflecting on the uncertain faces of the survivors. The reserves of magic power in the mana pool were rapidly depleted. The survivors were reminded by ZD and retreated to the vicinity of the blood core. They were temporarily safe. However, the man-made beasts suffered one after another. In the midst of killing each other, they were struck to death. However, the number of beasts did not decrease significantly because the tower spirit was still sending reinforcements. ZD's expression changed. "Tower spirit, stop the teleportation." "Tower spirit, request denied. Eliminate the intruders. Protecting the central tower is priority." Regardless of ZD's repeated calls, the tower spirit forced it to sleep again. Damn it. ZD's expression was dignified. The situation had become quite bad. That old fox, SCA Sand, did not look at his appearance. In fact, he still had some strength left. ZD's plan to launch a surprise attack and seize all the authority to control the weather had failed. What was worse was that the tower spirit had interfered and wanted to eliminate everyone except for ZD. The three parties had their own plans and were entangled with each other, resulting in a dead knot. Zhenjin's face revealed an unconcealable panic. He hurriedly persuaded ZD and SCA Sand, "Calm down, we're in the same group. There's no need to fight like this." "Haha," SCA Sand sneered. "It's too late. The lightning is now out of ZD's and my control. It's completely free to strike. Most of the authority to teleport has been taken back by her. If it was in my hands, the tower spirit would not have the ability to teleport so many beasts in." Zhenjin's forehead was full of cold sweat. Lightning and teleportation. If this continued, the reserves of the mana pool would be depleted. At that time, no one would be able to leave. "ZD, my fiancé." Zhenjin turned to look at ZD. In addition to anxiety, there was a touch of pleading in his eyes. ZD shook her head, her eyes cold. "I have no way to return the authority. If I deliberately lose to SCA Sand, the contract will kill me. Only when SCA Sand has no authority can I get away. At that time, when the tower spirit hibernates, I can stop controlling the weather, stopping the lightning and teleportation of beasts. We can win. Jinjin looked at Scab. Father, take a step back. The sky is high and the sea is wide. The green jade golden coffin is yours. We won't ask about it anymore. Ha ha ha. Scab raised his head and laughed maniacally. Why? Along the way, I will lead you, heal you, provide you with food, and protect you with divine spells. Without me, you wouldn't even be able to enter this underground alchemy factory. Why should I give the rest of the credit to you? What did you contribute? Despicable merchants, cowardly nobles. Do you think you can force me to submit just because you suddenly betrayed me at the last moment? Jun Jin's eyes widened. Sir Scab, can you please calm down? If no one gives in, we will all die. You're the only one who can back down now. My fiancé has a contract with her. SCA sneered and stared at Jinjin and ZD with a mocking gaze. Why can't your fiancé back down, but I have to back down? Besides, who knows the specific contents of the contract? Temple Knight, are you sure your fiancé didn't deceive you? Jinjin was stunned. In the end, the three sides seriously lacked trust in each other. At first, it was just a battle of interests, but now, the three sides couldn't back down. The situation was out of everyone's control. They were all riding a tiger and couldn't get off. Sir Scab, Miss ZD, please be rational. That's right. Unnecessary internal conflict will only allow the pagoda's spirit to succeed. The war trafficker is already dead. We can already escape. If the result is mutual destruction, then it's not worth it. The few Guardian Knights were also panicking. Scab sneered, his bloodshot eyes revealing a strong, killing intent. Then let's kill ZD first. As for Jinjin, it's fine as long as he doesn't die. The Guardian Knights hesitated and gradually moved. As Guardian Knights, their duty was to protect the church. They weren't willing to fight with the Temple Knights. However, the current situation was already tense. Killing ZD, as long as it took Jinjin's life, seemed to be the best choice. Moreover, they had always listened to Scab's orders. Jinjin looked at the Guardian Knights who were ready to move and suddenly became nervous. If they really fought, it would be difficult for two fists to fight against four hands. It would be difficult to protect ZD's safety. ZD, let my voice pass, Jinjin said to ZD. So in the next moment, the survivors heard Jinjin shout. Zhonggu, Sandao, Lanzhao, and the crew, I, Jinjin, as a Temple Knight, the only successor of the Hundred Needles family, summon you, recruit you. The Empire's flag flutters above our heads. The glory will be bestowed on you. Quickly come up and fight side by side with me. I, Jinjin, swear on my own reputation that I will not treat you unfairly. The crowd was in turmoil. Previously, the conversation between ZD and Scab was not spread outside. It was only limited to the fourth floor. Everyone only saw the lightning and teleportation, but they knew nothing about the inside story. Now that Jinjin summoned them, they were bewildered. What's going on? What happened upstairs? Did they encounter an enemy? Could it be that a modified magic beast was teleported? Jinjin's temporary recruitment had no effect. None of the survivors moved. It's useless. ZD's face was gloomy. This is why I resurrected a substitute. Damn it, I am Jinjin, a Temple Knight. Jinjin gritted his teeth. In order to encourage this group of people to fight against Scab and the Guardian Knights, he deliberately spoke vaguely. The crowd was indifferent, which made Jinjin feel ashamed. Now that Scab had lost the authority to control the weather, he could no longer use lightning to target a specific target. However, the random lightning strikes became more threatening in the eyes of the survivors. If you want to rush to the fourth floor, you have to risk your life. ZD said. Jinjin was lost in thought. If the substitute was still alive, he would definitely encourage these people, right? Not necessarily. ZD shook her head. You exposed your true identity, and his prestige fell to the bottom. It's hard for people to believe him. Lord Jinjin, I remember telling you many times to keep it a secret. Once you expose your identity, it will be a great loss to us. It's all my fault. At this moment, Jinjin was extremely regretful. He wiped the cold sweat off his forehead. Is the mana pool about to dry up? Let's hurry and open the portal first. The four of you can go first, Zhenjin said to the four Guardian Knights. The Guardian Knights were ready to move, but when they heard this, they hesitated. Because the teleportation authority was mostly in the hands of ZD, the current situation was out of everyone's control. If they escaped early, it would be a good choice to save their lives. Scab's heart sank. At present, he and ZD were in a stalemate. Although he was retreating, he still had the power to resist. Even if ZD won in the end and seized all the authority, it would take a long time. At that time, the mana pool would be completely dry, and they would not be able to teleport anyone. Scab and ZD were not willing to see this happen, so both sides had to change the situation in advance. After Zhang Jin's temporary recruitment failed, the choice of the four Guardian Knights became the biggest factor that changed the situation. The Guardian Knights were in a difficult position. They wanted to live, but they also wanted credit. They did not want to deal with Zhenjin, but they also did not want to go against Scab's orders. ZD saw the hesitation of the Guardian Knights and was happy. She immediately added, "Can't you see? Father Scab has already gone crazy. Perhaps when he sees the authority, he suffered a backlash, and his mind is not clear. Actually, he is not afraid of death, because even if he dies, his soul can be summoned by the Shengming Emperor, enter the God's kingdom, and even become a heroic spirit. But what about you? Do you have such treatment? Your situation is actually the same as ours." The hesitation of the Guardian Knights became stronger. But the next moment, Zhenjin said with fear, "ZD, my good fiancé, I don't want to die. There is a standard for the soul of a believer to enter the God's kingdom. My faith in the Emperor has not reached the level of devotion. Open the teleportation gate and send me away first." ZD was stunned. When Zhenjin proposed to open the teleportation gate, ZD thought that Zhenjin wanted to calm the Guardian Knights. She did not expect that he really wanted to open the teleportation gate. Under the great pressure of death, Zhenjin revealed his true nature. His reason was being destroyed, and his strong desire to live took the upper hand. Scab and the Guardian Knight's expressions changed again. Zhenjin's panic allowed them to catch a huge flaw in ZD's side. ZD hurriedly remedied. She coldly said to Zhenjin, "My fiancé, if you leave, do you want to leave me here alone? The reason I agreed to the Tower Spirit and accepted the contract, wasn't it for our future?" Zhenjin stammered. "I will think of a way to resurrect you. I swear." ZD sneered. "Even if you can resurrect me, if I die in their hands, all the credit will go to them. Are you willing?" "My fiancé, what credit is there to talk about? Save your life first. I can see that this Scab has gone crazy. He doesn't care about his life. This is actually normal. He is not a merchant. He is a believer, a devout believer of the God of victory." Zhenjin shouted with a pleading face. ZD closed her eyes and slowly shook her head. At this moment, she was completely disappointed in Zhenjin. The Guardian Knights were ready to move again. ZD suddenly opened her eyes and sneered. "Even if you kill me, you will not be able to escape. Scab, how can I not understand your situation? You don't have any strength left. Even if I die, you will have to waste divine power and spirit to invade my authority. Do you have so much divine power? Your spirit has also been damaged in the confrontation with me. In other words, once I die, no one can open the teleportation gate." The Guardian Knights hesitated again. They wanted credit, but they wanted to live more. Scab laughed and deliberately used a loud tone to show his state. "You underestimate me too much, Miss ZD. You are just a black iron. How can you understand the silver level? I still have a lot of strength left. You're just showing how weak you are with your alarmist words. My spirit is still vigorous. My divine power can even cast a resurrection spell. But I will not resurrect a substitute. Resurrect him and let him incite the people below to attack me. I have seen through your plan long ago." The Guardian Knights were moved again. ZD sneered. "My spirit is still vigorous? Then why are you retreating and losing your authority to me one after another?" The Guardian Knights hesitated again. "Enough. You too. I have had enough of you." Suddenly, Zhenjin exploded. He grabbed his hair, his face flushed red, and roared, "You two damn bastards! What the hell are you doing? You can obviously escape. What are you doing? Now that the mana pool is drying up, you are still not willing to retreat. Do you want to die? If you want to die, why don't you die earlier? Why don't you die on the road? Why don't you take the initiative to send yourself into the mouths of those magical beasts? Why do you still have to rush here? The longer we delay, the less credit we will get, and the less hope we have of surviving. Don't you understand this? You two idiots." Zhenjin roared again and again, venting the anger and panic in his heart. Master Jin Zhen is right. The four apologetic knights nodded their heads repeatedly and couldn't agree more. Since I am right, you four damn guys should listen to me. Don't be influenced by a few words from these two people. Zhenjin was furious. The four apologetic knights looked at each other and then nodded to Jin Zhen firmly. Scab and Zidi's expressions changed at the same time. The situation took a sudden turn. Jin Zhen's anger actually changed the situation. Now his attitude and choice were the key. Chapter 182. The betrayal of the four apologetic knights towards SCA Sand was unexpected, but after thinking about it carefully, it wasn't strange. It was impossible for the four of them to surrender to ZD, but Zhenjin was a different story. Zhenjin's bloodline was noble. He was a genuine noble, and he was a holy knight. Zhenjin and SCA Sand status were similar. They both believe in the same god. The clergy of the Holy Church often fought together with the Holy Knights. Every commander of the Holy Knights was equivalent to a red-cloaked archbishop, a level higher than a bishop. The apologetic knights weren't SCA Sand's direct subordinates. Originally, the 6 apologetic knights were only ordered to protect the priest, but now there were only 4 left. SCA Sand's condition didn't seem right. Moreover, no matter how great the contribution was, it was more important to SCA Sand. How much of the contribution the 4 apologetic knights could get was still a question. The mana pool was drying up too quickly. The 4 apologetic knights were worried that if they didn't have enough mana, they would become sacrificial lambs. After all, holy knights and priests couldn't harm each other, but there was no such thing with the status and identity of these 4 people. From their point of view, preserving their own lives was the first priority. Therefore, Jin Zhen, who wanted to survive, became the best target for their loyalty. Now, Zhenjin's attitude and choice was the key. "Lord Zhenjin," Zidi called. Looking at his fiancée, Zhenjin nodded, then turned around and stared sternly at SCA Sand. The priest's heart sank. "Father SCA Sand, I now ask you to withdraw from the fight for authority," Zhenjin shouted. Zidi exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. As she expected, at the crucial moment, Zhenjin still chose to stand on her side. SCA Sand was furious. "Even if you kill me, I won't withdraw from this fight." Zhenjin shook his head, his tone calming down. "Why would I attack a priest? I will only knock you out." "Knock me out?" SCA Sand sneered, a holy light gushing out from his body. His current physical condition was extremely worrisome. It was as if his entire body was wrapped in a layer of skin. The holy light, which was usually noble and pure, seemed rather horrifying on his body. "You think I don't have the power to fight back? In this environment where magic is forbidden, you can't even use combat chi. How can you resist my magic?" These words made Zhenjin and the 4 apologetic knights hesitate. Scab continued to speak to the 4 apologetic knights. "I can understand your choice. But if you do this, even if you make it out alive, what will you have to face? All of your training was to protect the church and our clergy members. If you really want to attack me, think about it. Even if you survive, you will have to face punishment and accountability. You will live a life worse than death." The 4 apologetic knights looked at each other with a solemn expression. SCA Sand's words were very sharp, making the 4 apologetic knights extremely embarrassed. They could only look at Zhenjin, their eyes begging Zhenjin for help. Zhenjin was stunned. He didn't dare. Along the way, He had fully felt the power of the holy light. Now he had to deal with SCA sand. It was very likely that he would die if he used the holy light. With SCA Sand's physical and mental condition, would he really not slaughter the temple knights if he was forced to? Jinjin didn't dare to gamble. Even ZD hesitated. Sir, be careful. Don't be rash. Jinjin was her protective talisman at this moment. Once Jinjin died, it was obvious who the four apologetic knights would listen to. Jinjin gritted his teeth, stared at SCA Sand, and said tentatively, "You can't kill me." ZD's heart went cold. Jinjin's words made the fear in her heart unfold. Sure enough, SCA Sand's next words were, "Haha, Temple Knight, you can try. See if I dare. If you force me, I can do anything." Jinjin gritted his teeth, his expression even more hesitant. He was in a dilemma. The reason why he was angry just now was that he wanted to live. But now, SCA Sand was strangely stubborn to the end. This made Jinjin helpless. If I try to knock SCA Sand out and die under his holy light, wouldn't that be too unjust? The risk was too great. Jinjin retreated. The pressure of impending death caused his mind to work faster than ever before. He quickly organized his words and persuaded. SCA Sand, the longer we delay, the more the mana pool will be consumed. The next artifact might not even be able to be sent out. Now, the reason why we are in a deadlock is because we can't divide the credit equally. I propose that we divide all the credit equally. Equally, ZD raised her eyebrows, unwilling. Please shut up. My fiancé, do you want to die? Jinjin turned back and reprimanded her severely. ZD didn't speak anymore. Equally? Impossible. SCA Sand sneered. He had already forced Jinjin to submit. If he didn't take an inch, when would he take a mile? SCA Sand continued. Do you know how much I've paid? Besides, do you think that just because you can share the credit equally, you can do it equally? Rewards based on merit are the matters of the higher-ups. Can you interfere with their judgment and decision-making? SCA Sand's attitude was even more unyielding than before. Jinjin gritted his teeth. Fine, then I'll take a step back. We don't want the things on the third floor. 2 artifacts will only take this big shell. The green jade golden coffin is yours. That won't do. SCA Sand growled. Jinjin was stunned. Immediately, he became furious and roared. Do you understand what you're doing now? Sir Priest, you're looking for your own death. I really don't understand. What do you want so much credit for? Can't you just give us some? Yes, your contribution is the greatest, but didn't we all contribute? Without the sacrifice of our group, how could you come here unscathed? Maybe you'd have already sacrificed yourself. At least 4 Guardian Knights wouldn't be left with so many. Ha ha! SCA Sand laughed, his laughter becoming more and more deranged. Whether it was Jinjin's outburst or his negotiation with SCA Sand, ZD had never stopped attacking SCA Sand throughout the entire process. In order to resist ZD, SCA Sand could only continuously squeeze himself, regardless of everything else. He was now even older. His white hair had gradually fallen, revealing a bald head with veins popping out. His eyes were completely red and protruding. His entire body was emaciated, as if he would die at any moment. I won't give in. If we die, we'll all die together. Why should I give in to you, scum? All the credit belongs to me. It's all mine. If you don't give it to me, then we'll all die together. SCA Sand roared, his face distorted, as if he had completely lost his mind. Sir Priest, can you calm down? We didn't force you. The Guardian Knights were panicking. I won't give in. I won't give in to things like you. SCA Sand muttered, constantly emphasizing. His gaze was obviously sluggish, giving people the feeling that he was delirious. The reason? We can discuss. If you have a problem here, we can solve it together. Jinjin growled. Facing such a stubborn and unyielding SCA Sand, he had a headache. After a long time, SCA Sand reacted. The reason? Haha, there's only one reason. Listen carefully. Jinjin hurriedly said, I'm all ears. The next moment, SCA Sand spat out a mouthful of turbid air. With a weak but determined tone, he said softly, "Because I'm SCA Sand." What? Zhen Jin couldn't believe it. His expression made SCA Sand laugh. SCA Sand's face revealed a twisted smile, and he repeated, "That's right, because I'm SCA Sand." The others were all shocked. Just like what ZD said, the priest seemed to have overdrawn his body and suffered a heavy blow to his spirit. He really was delirious. He was crazy. "I'm SCA Sand." The priest's vision gradually blurred. At this moment, he saw his past. Shengming Continent, West Coast. The salty and warm sea breeze blew into the church through the tall ribbed, arched windows. The soft light of the sunset shone on the multicolored flower windows, rendering a mysterious atmosphere. Priest SCA Sand suddenly pushed open the door and quickly walked into the large chapel. With a face full of anger, he quickly passed through the rows of seats and came to the front of the podium. He questioned, "Bishop Ping Yi, why did you reject my promotion? I've been in this parish for 3 years. For 3 years, I've been conscientious, contributing to the parish. Which day did I not wake up early and sleep late? Most of the small churches in the parish were built under my supervision. These years, almost all of the new believers were developed by me. For this, I worked through the night and exhausted my mind. My merits are more than enough for me to be promoted to bishop. My devotion to the Shengming Emperor can be witnessed by the sun and moon. My aptitude is definitely not a problem. I can even use the resurrection technique as a priest. I want to be a bishop. This is the goal I've been working towards for 3 years. Why did you reject it?" Everyone else agreed, but it's your rejection that made my 3 years of hard work go to waste. What right do you have? Are you afraid? Or jealous? Jealous of me? I'm so young, but I'm going to be on the same level as you and become a bishop like you. Bishop Ping, he quietly listened to all the words. Then, he ended his prayer and turned his head to look at SCA Sand. He was very old, with a head full of white hair and a full beard as white as snow. He was tall, but his back was bent because of his age. Even though he was being scolded and reprimanded, his gaze was still filled with gentleness and kindness. "Young and promising SCA Sand, anger will not hurt me. It will only hurt yourself. The reason I rejected it is because you are not suitable to be a bishop." Not suitable? What right do you have to say that I'm not suitable? SCA Sand raised his eyebrows and exploded again. Bishop Ping, he stretched out his wide palm and made a gesture to SCA Sand. Even though SCA Sand's anger rushed to his heart, following Bishop Ping Yi's action, his mood miraculously eased a little. Bishop Ping Yi slowly said, 3 years ago, there was a theft case. A young guard under the city lord's command stole a treasure from the city lord's residence and was discovered in the end. His corpse was hung at the city gate for a year. You were the one who reported this matter, right? SCA Sand's eyes flickered with a cold light. That's right. The truth was that this young guard was trying to elope with the city lord's daughter. Before the operation, the guard confessed to me, repenting his betrayal of the city lord and the guilt of being away from his parents. At the same time, he prayed for the success of this elopement. This bumpkin, he relied on his handsome appearance and flowery words to climb up to the upper class. The city lord's daughter was inexperienced, so she was deceived by him. How could I tolerate such an act of disrespect? The city lord gave him the opportunity to be a guard. What a great favor. He actually wanted to repay kindness with enmity. Thus, I was filled with anger and told the city lord about this matter that very night. Was I wrong? Bishop Ping, he shook his head. Confession is the moment when mortals get close to God. We should forgive. This is a sacred matter and should not be used. You violated the church's rules. 2 years ago, when the Archbishop of Secret Rainbow came to inspect, you were in charge of receiving him. During the 7 days of receiving him, hundreds of people in the parish lost their lives. Is this true? SCA Sand nodded. It is true. However, Bishop Ping, you know the situation of our parish best. We are too barren here, and the only specialty is the silver-threaded fish. I mobilized the church and offered a large reward. encouraging them to catch the freshest silver-threaded fish alive to receive the Archbishop of Secret Rainbow. The Archbishop of Secret Rainbow was full of praise for this. Although it was very dangerous to go deep into the sea to catch the silver-threaded fish alive, the church was willing to take the risk when they heard that it was to serve the Archbishop of Secret Rainbow. Bishop Ping sighed. However, the money you used to offer the reward was originally contributed by these church members. My original plan was to use the money to buy improved seeds and distribute them to the people for free, improving the food in the parish, so that these people could eat real food and not mud biscuits made of mud, butter, and sea salt. SCA Sand raised his eyebrows and said angrily, "This is a good plan, but I don't think it was wrong to use it on the Archbishop of Secret Rainbow. I used it for the right purpose and did not embezzle it. I have never tasted a silver-threaded fish before. It is only natural for the lower class to contribute to the higher class. There's no need to care too much about these people. They're like weeds. The more they die, the more they grow. What is the most abundant in the parish? Isn't it just these people?" Bishop Ping, I know you were promoted from a commoner, and I understand your attitude. However, you are too sympathetic to these lower-class people. In fact, human society is not much different from the jungle and the sea. Everyone's future identity and level is determined from the moment they are born. The higher-class people are like sharks and tigers, while the lower-class people are like fish and prawns, birds and rabbits. They are born to be sacrificed, and their flesh and blood nourish the higher-class people. This is the society of our human race. No, to be more precise, elves, beastmen, dwarves, and so on, which one is not like this? Only when the strong rule the weak, and the higher class rule the lower class people, will society be stable, families will have order, and the empire will have hope. Bishop Ping, he shook his head. Because this money was used for other purposes, a famine came a year ago, and many people were at their wits' end. It was you who cooperated with the Lord to suppress these people and slaughtered them all. I remember I told you not to act so hastily, right? SCA Sand sneered. Indeed, Your Excellency, your idea at that time was to mediate, so you told me. But I was not willing. These rioters, they dared to rebel against the Lord. Just thinking about it makes me angry. Worms and earthworms should live in mud. This is the trajectory of their lives. Any lower-class people who covet the higher-class people, who are filled with greed and unwillingness, must be taught a bloody lesson. I killed all the people who tried to riot, and the parish is peaceful now. No one will resist. This is all my contribution. Bishop Ping, he was silent. After a moment, he sighed. SCA Sand, I remember you are also from a noble family. You're a bastard, right? You don't have the qualifications to inherit the territory, so you chose to be a priest. In that case, please understand these mortals. To a certain extent, they are in a similar situation to you. SCA Sand laughed. Bishop Ping, how can you judge me like this? You are still a commoner. You can't understand the thoughts of us nobles. To tell you the truth, I am not a bastard, but a legitimate son, and the eldest son. But I voluntarily gave up the right to inherit the territory. Why? Because my bloodline is not outstanding, the concentration is very low, and my brother's potential is much stronger than mine. Bishop Ping, he was stunned. What do you think the world is? What is the foundation of the empire? Bishop Ping, SCA Sand opened his arms, his voice so loud that it echoed in the chapel. It is because we have the right thoughts. When a person is born, their bloodline determines their life. Mortals without bloodline have to live in mud for their entire lives. This is actually a kind of protection for them. If you want an earthworm to rise high in the sky, it will only burn him to death from the sun. Although I have an outstanding bloodline, there are people of the same age who are much more outstanding than me in the family. For the entire family, I have to give in. Lions are always competing with each other. We have to let the young lions with the strongest aptitudes eat the best meat. Only then can there be the strongest lion king of each generation. The family is like this. The empire is also like this. It is because of this that our human race can suppress the world and occupy the throne of the first overlord. Bishop Ping, do you know that your thoughts are very dangerous? These mortals are not worth caring about. In order to protect them, you sacrifice the interests of the upper class. This will only make the Lion King of the entire pride weak, and over time, the human race will become worse and worse, being overtaken by other races. Bishop Ping Yi's face was calm, but his gaze was firm. If mortals are not worth caring about, then what am I? This is the fairness of fate. Among the countless mortals, there will always be one or two lucky ones who stand out. But what does this count for? It is a miracle that it happened to you. From a perspective of the family, a noble family can continuously produce extraordinaries. But what about mortals? Among tens of thousands of people, there might not even be one in several years. From the perspective of the empire, almost all the higher-ups are of noble birth. Even if they have the identity of a mortal, there is only one exception in 10,000. Forget it. Looking at your expression, I know that you are stubborn. SCA San spat out a mouthful of turbid air and sneered. You can't convince me, and I can't convince you. Then come, Bishop Ping Yi. I formally propose a duel within the church. The duel within the church was one of the characteristics of the sacred sect, because the Shengming emperor was the god of victory. Once a dispute occurred, the winner of the duel within the church would also win in the dispute. A great battle lasted for half a night. A few days later, SCA San bid farewell to Bishop Ping Yi. I can heal the scar on your face, Bishop Ping Yi said. No need. I deliberately kept it. SCA San's face was calm, but his gaze was filled with hatred. I want to take it and continue on the path of my life. I want it to remind me at all times of the humiliation and failure I suffered here. One day, I will come back and tell you that I am the right one. Ping Yi was silent. SCA San turned around, raised his head, and strode out of the church. His blurry vision gradually became emotional, and he struggled out of his memories. SCA San once again saw Jinjin, ZD, and the four guardian knights in front of him. The anger and fear on each of their faces increased the joy in SCA San's heart. I will never back down. You bunch of lowly bloodlines, a mere black iron, and you want to humiliate me? As for you, Jinjin, you have brought shame to your family and your bloodline. How can the noble give way to the lowly? Even if it means death, there was dead silence. Jinjin was dumbfounded. If people were not afraid of death, what else could they do? Everyone was helpless against SCA Sand. Then go to hell. ZD gnashed her teeth in hatred. Father, are you forcing us to make a move? The Guardian Knights were ready to make a move. SCA Sand only responded with a cold snort. The four apologetic knights looked at each other and dispersed. From four different directions, they slowly approached Scab Shah. The aura of defeat hit him in the face. SCA Sand knew that he had been bluffing. In fact, he was already an arrow at the end of its flight, and there was not much of his divine power left. He also knew that he was irrational, but in fact, without this anger and unwillingness to support him, he would have collapsed long ago. Perhaps this was human. Some people were usually controlled by their emotions and did not know it. But the crucial moment, they were as calm and rational as ice. And some people were usually calm and rational, but the critical moment of life and death, they were blinded by their emotions. Is this the best I can do? On the verge of defeat, SCA San's eyes suddenly burst out with a bright light. Wait, he blurted out, shouting in a low voice. At this moment, it was as if a bolt of lightning flashed through his mind. This bolt of lightning tore through the dark fog, illuminating a path to victory. My great lord, SCA San sighed, and his gaze immediately skipped over the Guardian Knights that he called out, skipped over Jinjin, and landed on ZD's body. The shipwreck of the Pig's Kiss was caused by you, right? Miss ZD, everyone. Jinjin was furious. Father Zhao Shah, you're talking nonsense. You just want to stall for time. This kind of trick. Ha ha ha. SCA Sand suddenly laughed wildly, and his spirit was lifted. His gaze was like a sharp arrow, locking on his ZD, and he repeated, "This battle is my victory, because the shipwreck of the Pig's Kiss was caused by you." Chapter 183. Jinjin and the four apologetic knights were a little surprised by SCA's certainty. ZD's heart sank, but she sneered, "Oh, father, you want to struggle? Just based on this one-sided statement? I have evidence." SCA growled. "First, you have the 18th level of authority. This level of authority is not simple. It's not just a simple transaction with the war traffickers or a transaction volume that reaches a certain level. You can get this level of authority. I've already checked. There are a total of 50 levels of authority. The 18th level of authority is already very high, at least a partner. So, your relationship with the war traffickers is not that simple. Second, you just admitted that Jin's substitute was custom-made from the war traffickers. Jin once confessed to me, so I know that the first time he saw the substitute was in the warehouse at the dock. And before that, you couldn't show Jin his substitute. This means that after you got the goods from the war traffickers, you transported them to the warehouse at the dock. I'm guessing that before this, you have already set foot on the island of confusion and returned to the dock with Jin's substitute. You also said that this is all your guess. ZD shook her head. Don't worry. There's a third point. After the shipwreck, you disappeared. Most of the survivors had boarded the beach closest to the sunken ship, but there was no sign of you. Why was your landing point so far away from the sunken ship? After you fell into the water, the island was close at hand. Why didn't you swim to the beach closest to you? Instead, you chose to go further away? What's wrong with that? I was swept by the waves. ZD said indifferently. SCA's gaze became sharper. Haha, a very good excuse. You blurted it out, proving that you were already prepared to deal with this kind of questioning. But if it was the waves and you couldn't control yourself, then it's even more strange. Why did you land on this island with a group of people following you? Why did you happen to keep Jin's substitute so well? Do you believe in the sea god? With his blessing, not only did he send you to the beach with the waves, but he also sent a team of people who happened to belong to you to protect you? ZD sneered. We didn't split up either, did you? Can I also suspect that you and the apologetic knights are the ones who caused the shipwreck? No, it's obvious that Father SCA Sand used divine spells to unite all the knights. When we were on the ship, the apologetic knights were always by the priest's side. Jin shook his head and denied ZD's words. He began to size up his fiancée in front of him with a surprised and suspicious look. ZD's face darkened. Ha ha! Scab laughed heartily. Temple Knight, it seems like you aren't that stupid. Then, I can conclude that after the shipwreck, you gathered a team of people and boarded the landing boat. You went to another place that you were relatively familiar with and landed on Confusion Island. You've come prepared, ZD retorted. If I came prepared, I wouldn't have chosen such a landing spot. This is a huge flaw. If you can see it so easily, others can naturally see it too. Would I expose myself so easily? So, you wanted to land on Confusion Island. You were prepared, but the timing was too hasty. You didn't prepare enough. This is probably because you created the shipwreck on the spur of the moment. Your original plan was to make an agreement with Jin to go to the Wilderness Continent and help Jin compete for the position of White Sand City's lord. But when the Pig's Kiss sailed to the shipwreck site, you discovered that a shocking change had occurred on Confusion Island. A team of powerhouses from the Bloody Judgment Court raided the underground alchemy factory. They almost died together with the war traffickers. Because you have the 18th level of authority, you learned of the situation. You decided to land on Confusion Island at the last minute. From your point of view, if the war traffickers were seriously injured, you could rescue them. This would be a huge contribution. If the war traffickers died, you could immediately take over all their assets. If the Bloody Judgment Court won, you could pretend to be innocent and see if there was a chance to destroy the evidence of your Wisteria Chamber of Commerce colluding with the war traffickers. But when you decided to take action, you found that you couldn't do it openly. You could only do it secretly. There's another problem. You made an agreement with Jean to go to the wilderness continent. Success or failure in the competition for the position of White Sand City's lord is related to your future. But the war traffickers in Confusion Island are a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. If you take a gamble, perhaps your whole life will be turned upside down. I have to admit that you have a very adventurous spirit. In fact, if you could really make it here, you would indeed be the first to inherit the war traffickers' assets. Unfortunately, your team was too weak. They didn't even make it to the jungle. Perhaps this is because you underestimated the dangers of Confusion Island. Or perhaps because of the previous fierce battle, the war traffickers activated all their defensive measures and released countless man-made magical beasts. At the most critical moment, you almost lost your life. You had no choice but to hastily awaken the substitute. Because the substitute's memory was too hasty, it was only instilled with a small amount of memory. That's why you had all kinds of experiences later. ZD's eyes flickered as she retorted, "Then why did I kill the captain? If I really wanted to land on Confusion Island, I wouldn't have brought more people ashore, right? After discussing with Jinjin, I secretly left with a landing ship. Wouldn't that be fine? Why would I do something so superfluous as to kill the captain and create a shipwreck so that more people would land on Confusion Island?" As soon as these words were spoken, Jean and the four apologetic knights' faces changed dramatically. ZD saw the change in their expressions, and her face suddenly turned pale. At the critical moment, she made a huge mistake. Scab was very excited. His pupils dilated as he stared at ZD. "Did I say that you killed the captain?" ZD tried her best to make up for her mistake. She shrugged and said, "What's wrong with that? You framed me for causing a shipwreck. Then the captain must be the biggest obstacle. His cause of death is a mystery. I just said in advance that you want to frame me. As expected of the president of the Chamber of Commerce, you're really eloquent. Unfortunately, I know why you killed the captain," Scab said. "Because you found out about the captain of the Pig's Kiss and wanted to harm you. He was actually a member of the Temple Knights, Fun E. Fun E was one of the competitors for the position of the Lord of White Sand City. Later, I realized that my itinerary was actually a coincidence. The captain was loyal to Fun Yi's family. He was ordered to investigate my information, and if the situation permitted, he would use Fun Yi's name to express goodwill to me in advance. Your goal was to get close to me, so you chose to land on the Pig's Kiss. The captain might not have found out about Jinjin, but he found out about his fiancée, Miss CD. Of course, the captain would want to harm you. I don't know why, but Miss CD, you found out about it. If you secretly left, it was very likely that the captain would track you down. This would bring you a lot of trouble when you landed on the island. So, you simply created a shipwreck and killed him. Then how did you know, father?" Jinjin looked at Scab and asked. Scab smiled faintly, because Shisua is the captain's son. Of course, he knew about the captain's camp. However, he struggled to survive on the island and chose to rely on your substitute. Of course, he thought that the substitute was the real Temple Knight. When he confessed to me, he was very worried. He really did want to rely on the substitute, but he was afraid that the substitute would find out about his father's camp. Jinjin suddenly understood. ZD refuted. "The captain of the Pig's Kiss is very strong. I'm just a fledgling low-level mage. How could I kill him without making any noise?" Scab sneered, "I don't know. You're a mage, and a mage's methods are very rich. You're also proficient in potions, so you must have a variety of methods. In short, after you killed the captain, you destroyed the Pig's Kiss and broke it in two. You led a group of the most loyal and reliable people and landed on the island." Junjin and the four apologetic knights looked at ZD. "ZD, tell me this isn't true." Junjin's voice trembled. ZD sneered, "So in the end, all of this is your guess." "Haha, of course I can prove it." Scab laughed again. "Divine art, lie detection." In the next moment, the divine art that Scab cast fell on ZD's body. "Now, if you were wrongly accused by me, Miss ZD, you can prove yourself." Scab took a deep breath, his face completely calm. ZD fell into a deathly silence. Scab's face changed from calm to excited. He couldn't help but be excited. At the last moment, when he was about to lose, he finally grasped the final chance of victory. Indeed, all of this was just his guess. He only saw a possibility. But now he had succeeded. ZD's silence explained everything. The divine power he had left was extremely little. It was really only enough to cast a small divine art to detect lies. But it was this seemingly ordinary divine art that changed everything. Jean and the apologetic knights' faces became more and more ugly. I was almost used by her. Vicious woman, so beautiful on the outside, so dark on the inside. So many people died because of you. You should be hanged. Tell me, ZD, why did you do this? Jean walked in front of ZD and asked emotionally. ZD sighed and shook her head. You don't need to know so much. Jean continued to ask. You caused the ship to crash, but you didn't inform me at all. You didn't care about my life and death. You abandoned me. This is unreasonable. We have a marriage contract, and the marriage contract was announced. You caused the ship to crash and didn't inform me, which is equivalent to secretly harming me. You violated the marriage contract like this, and you will be killed by the contract. Why are you still alive now? ZD responded with silence. Scab said, It's very simple. I speculate that this was the work of the war traffickers who tampered with the marriage contract. He is an alchemy grandmaster, a legendary mage. Jean narrowed his eyes, staring at ZD in front of him, and began to emit a dangerous aura. The fact had already proved Scab's guess. ZD betrayed him, but she did not suffer the backlash of the marriage contract. Scab said again, Think about it more, Paladin. Why did Miss ZD choose a substitute after causing the shipwreck, and not you? Speaking of which, this substitute really looks like you. If you didn't take the initiative to reveal it, I would have been kept in the dark. Your substitute is very different from ordinary war creatures. He is very special. It is very likely that he was personally modified by the war traffickers. I'm afraid that Miss ZD really wanted to use a substitute to replace you. Scab's words made Jean's body and mind tremble violently, and then an ice-cold chill gushed out from the depths of his heart, quickly spreading to his whole body. No, impossible. Jean held his head, and his frightened emotions made his pupils shrink to the smallest. I want to compete for the position of White Sand City's lord, and my identity will definitely be strictly checked. If I become the city lord in the future, I will be even more strictly examined. In addition to the examination of bloodline, there will also be the examination of memory and the use of divine arts. Jean subconsciously retorted. Scab sneered, Look at these man-made magical beasts. These are all proof that the war traffickers are already the world's peak in the field of life alchemy. The examination of bloodline is not a problem for him. Think about your substitute, the Temple Knight. The accuracy he displayed was even greater than yours. I heard that he can also use the 100 needles fighting technique, and memory is even less of a problem. Didn't you use the memory crystal before? As for the examination of divine arts, this is indeed a huge obstacle. But for the war traffickers, I don't think it's a problem. Look, what is this big shell? Scab's eyes indicated. Jean's body and mind trembled again, and he muttered, The fairy tale of the mermaids. The pearl foam produced by this artifact could even deceive the gods, and was the world's best disguise. At this moment, Jean finally realized his true situation. I didn't expect that there would be a deadly, poisonous snake hiding by my side. Apart from the horror, there was also a monstrous anger. You damned woman, you actually want to take my life. Jean was agitated, and he pulled out the silver lightning, thrusting it towards ZD. Spare her life. At the crucial moment, it was Scab who called out. Jean's wrist shook, and the silver lightning almost grazed ZD's heart, passing through her body. Scab shouted, Don't be impulsive, Paladin. I don't have enough divine power, and I can't invade the authority by myself. But my spirit has been entangled with ZD's spirit. Her spirit has been recognized by the Tower Spirit, and I'm trying to adjust my own spirit, pretending to be her. Only in this way can I control the teleportation authority again. Of course, if Miss ZD can obediently cooperate with me, that would be the best-case scenario. ZD sneered. You wish. Saying this, she urged her spirit again and attacked Scab. Scab's nose started to bleed, and he felt dizzy. Very good. Scab clenched his teeth and persisted. Torture her ruthlessly. Junjin moved, and with a kick, he kicked ZD to the ground. Then, the silver lightning sword in his hand lightly pierced through ZD's shoulder, and she was temporarily fixed to the floor. The intense pain caused ZD's spirit to fluctuate, and Scab took the opportunity to counterattack, stabilizing his position. But ZD's spirit still stubbornly resisted. Let's die together. You want me to die? Why? Why? Have I ever treated you badly? I've always treated you with sincerity. Junjin roared, extremely angry. The silver lightning in his hand pierced continuously, and soon there were more than 10 small bloody holes on ZD's body. The silver lightning continued to provoke, and ZD's hands and feet were cut off, and she could no longer exert strength. The immense pain caused the girl's body to twitch, but she clenched her teeth tightly and did not let out a cry. This tough attitude made Junjin hate and angry, and he tortured ZD even more viciously. The magic robe could not resist the silver lightning, and ZD's ears and fingers were cut off one by one. The skin on her arms and legs were cut off piece by piece, revealing the bright red flesh underneath. Soon, a pool of blood accumulated under ZD's body. The 4 apologetic knights felt a chill in their hearts. Junjin was proficient in martial arts, and his methods of torturing people were even more skillful. He had a good understanding of the human body structure, and ZD suffered a great deal of pain, but she did not die immediately. After a while, Scab suddenly made a sound, and the spiritual confrontation achieved a breakthrough. He began to regain the authority that he had lost previously, and he was progressing at a rapid pace. ZD's spirit was constantly shrinking and collapsing, and her usually bright purple crystal-like eyes became dim. Waves of black and gray color filled her vision. I never thought that my end would be like this. I still failed in the end. The aura of death came from all directions. Chapter 184. In a room filled with the smell of medicine, a seriously ill lady lay weakly on the bed. The door opened gently, and a father and daughter came to the bedside. The father's face was full of worry. He sighed and said to his daughter, ZD, quickly say the last words to your mother. Childhood, ZD gently called out, Mother. The lady opened her eyes with difficulty. When she saw ZD, she immediately showed strong love, reluctance, and guilt. My daughter. Childhood ZD was puzzled. Mother. Father said you have to go to another place. Can you not go? The lady smiled, but her eyes quickly turned red. No, Mother also wants to stay and accompany you for the rest of your life. But Mother can't, I'm sorry. Childhood ZD lowered her head and sobbed. Behind her, her father was also immersed in grief and remained silent. The lady was extremely distressed. She used all her strength to barely grab ZD's little hand and comforted her. Little ZD, don't cry, be good. Before you leave, Mother will tell you your favorite story. Childhood ZD raised her head. There were still tears in her big eyes, but her attention was obviously drawn away. Is it the story of the princess, the demon, and the knight? Yes, I love it the most. Childhood ZD choked with sobs and nodded. A long, long time ago, there was a kingdom. The king was benevolent and loved the people. He and the queen loved each other very much. But after they had been married for a long time, they had a child. She was a little princess. The little princess was not only innocent, lively, and cute, but also the most beautiful person in the kingdom. Whether it was the king, the queen, or the entire kingdom, they all loved the little princess very much and treated her as an angel. One day, a very, very bad demon sneaked into the castle and took the little princess away by force. The demon took the little princess to his lair in the abyss and didn't let the little princess leave. The demon liked the little princess very much. He said to the little princess angrily, "Quickly marry me, little princess. You are the cutest person I have ever seen in the world." The little princess shook her head. "I don't want to marry you, you bad demon. My father and mother will send knights to save me." The demon laughed. "My lair is very, very deep in the abyss. No one knows its exact location. How can a knight find it?" The little princess gradually grew up. The demon bared his teeth at the princess and said, "Princess, oh princess, you are the most youthful and beautiful girl I have ever seen in the world. Quickly marry me. After so many years, your knight still can't find this place." However, the princess did not doubt him. Instead, she was even more determined than before. "There will definitely be knights who will find this place. I will never marry you." The princess gradually grew older and became the eldest princess. The demon was even more captivated by the first princess. "First princess, you are the most charming and seductive person I have ever seen. Your skin is smoother than snow. Your face is prettier than the goddess of beauty. Your eyes are brighter than the stars at night, and your golden hair is long and soft, like silk woven by the sun. Quickly marry me. My knight will come and save me." The first princess was still very determined. The demon mocked, "You can't wait. You have waited for so many years. If you wait any longer, the god of time will take away your youth, fade your brilliance, and put wrinkles and age on your body. Rather than that, you might as well marry me now." The first princess thought for a moment and deliberately said to the demon, "Let me think about it. If I am in a good mood, I will agree." The demon was very happy. "Then how can I make you happy?" The first princess said, "Oh, it's like this. Your lair is dark and stuffy. For so many years, I have not seen the night sky. If I see the vast sky and feel the cool night breeze, my mood will naturally be cheerful." The demon thought for a moment and agreed. "That's easy. I will open the lid of the abyss, and you'll be able to see the night sky." Thus, the demon opened the lid. The first princess looked up and saw the night sky and many stars. She suddenly pulled off her hair tie, and her long golden hair, which was as beautiful as a waterfall, spread out. Her long hair emitted golden sunlight. The sunlight shone into the night sky and covered the brilliance of the stars. A handsome, young, brave, and fearless knight saw the golden sunlight and broke into the abyss to find the demon and the first princess. "Let go of the princess, you despicable demon." The knight shouted and engaged in a fierce battle with the demon. The knight was very powerful, and the demon was no match for him. But the demon was very cunning. He stretched out his finger and turned the princess into his appearance. Now the two demons were standing in front of the knight. The two demons laughed proudly at the same time. "Knight, put down your spear. You can't tell who is real and who is fake. If you make the wrong choice and kill the real princess, it will be terrible." The knight hesitated for a moment, but quickly made a decision. He pulled out his sword and slashed at the real devil. The demon was seriously injured and roared in disbelief. "How do you know I am real?" "Because your body emits a strong smell of sulfur. But the real princess, although her appearance has been turned into a demon by you, has a moving fragrance." The knight replied. And so, the demon was killed by the knight. As soon as the demon died, his dark magic also disappeared, and the princess returned to her original appearance. The young knight took the princess away from the abyss of sin and returned to the castle to see the king and queen. The family was finally reunited. The princess married the knight and lived a happy life from then on. After telling the story, the madam became weaker. She tried her best to support herself and not let herself fall asleep. She used the last of her strength to grab ZD's small hand and told her, "My little ZD, my little princess, although mother is leaving, you will still receive father's love, no matter what kind of trouble you will face in the future. You must keep hope in your heart. You must be optimistic. You must be strong. As long as you persist, there will be a knight, your knight, who will come to help you and save you." After saying that, the madam's strength finally dissipated and she slowly closed her eyes. The breath of life slowly disappeared. This was a mother's blessing to her daughter, and also her last words. The young and ignorant ZD didn't understand the heavy meaning of this scene, but her mother's last words were deeply engraved in ZD's heart. "Good girl, don't wake your mother. She's asleep." Her father's choked voice came from behind. "Oh." ZD nodded obediently and followed her father to the door. "Father, when mother leaves, can I send her off?" ZD looked back at the bed, unwilling to let her go. Her father clenched his teeth and closed the door with trembling hands. "I think you can, as long as you don't laze in bed and wake up early." As time passed, the young ZD gradually grew into a young girl. She inherited her parents' characteristics. Like a princess in a fairy tale, she became young and lovely. Her father didn't marry anymore. He opened the Wisteria Chamber of Commerce. His work became heavier and heavier, and he doted on ZD a lot. Perhaps it was because he didn't have enough time to accompany ZD as she grew up, but this doting was mixed with a lot of guilt. Her beautiful face made ZD receive attention and welcome wherever she went. In the academy, the young girl ZD was pursued by many young men. Soon, a noble girl from a prominent family defeated all the pursuers and stood out. He was handsome, rich, and gentle. Under his passionate and numerous pursuit methods, the young girl ZD's heart began to beat faster. Perhaps he will be my knight. However, one day, at a banquet, ZD was standing on the balcony to get some fresh air when she accidentally heard a conversation between the noble boys. "Ha ha, I'm about to take down ZD. I'll definitely win the bet between us. She seems difficult to pursue, but she really thinks she's a princess, so she's arrogant and overbearing. Ha ha, what a joke. She's just a merchant's daughter. No matter how big the Wisteria Chamber of Commerce is, her bloodline is still lowly. Princess? Little girls of this age like to have such dreams. She must be fantasizing about marrying me. With my status, why would I marry a merchant's daughter? What a joke. After I've played with her, I'll let anyone take over." ZD stood on the balcony, leaning against the wall. Her face was pale, and she covered her mouth with both hands as tears flowed out. The shattering of her love caused ZD's heart to suffer a heavy blow. She felt that her world was filled with misfortune. After this incident, she was extremely vigilant against all her pursuers and was no longer easily moved. Her busy father couldn't enter the young girl's sensitive heart. She could only tell herself about the countless worries in her heart. First, her dream of being a princess was shattered. Then, the burden of her studies gradually increased. This made her realize a cruel reality. Her bloodline was inferior. Even if the Chamber of Commerce provided enough cultivation resources, even if she worked extremely hard, the highest she could achieve in her life would only be black iron rank. Her father's business grew bigger and bigger, and the Wisteria Chamber of Commerce continued to expand. He gradually felt powerless, and the smile on his face became less and less. After that, his face was filled with worry almost every day. Many late nights, ZD found that the light in her father's study was still on. ZD would knock on the door, enter the study, and remind her father to sleep early. The president of the Wisteria Chamber of Commerce often smoked a cigar. His fat body was curled up in the wide leather chair. Under the dense smoke, ZD felt like she was curled up in fear. When he saw ZD, he would raise his head, squeeze out a smile, and quickly extinguish the cigar in his hand. Before ZD could roll her eyes, he nodded with a hint of flattery and admitted his mistake. "My good daughter, don't say anything. I understand. I'll go to sleep now." Chapter 185. In the process of growing up, there were too many changes. The only constant seemed to be the father's love for his daughter. Year after year, the birthday parties he held for his daughter became more and more luxurious. For her 11th birthday party, her father spent a lot of money, and the party covered the whole garden city. "Right here, stop." Her father removed his hand that was covering ZD's eyes. Clang, clang, clang. ZD's eyes suddenly brightened, and her small mouth subconsciously formed an O shape. Her face was full of surprise and surprise. In front of her, there was a huge cake that was 3 meters high and divided into 11 layers. It was shining with brilliant colors. Each layer had its main color: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and purple. It was dreamy and charming like a rainbow. ZD exclaimed, "Rainbow cake!" This dessert was a classic, famous throughout the empire. In the world, there were no more than 10 people who could make it, because it used many rare magic materials. Every bite of the rainbow cake could make people feel the sweetest taste in the world and produce a very relaxed and pleasant mood. This was a top-grade cake, which was of great help and enhancement to the cultivation and state of the person who ate it. "Haven't you always been curious about the taste of the rainbow cake?" Her father smiled. "So this time, I invited a famous pastry master. This cake is your birthday cake." "Dad, this is really great." ZD was so excited that she was incoherent. She hugged her father's arm and leaned her head on his shoulder, her eyes shining. "I know you love me the most, Dad." "Of course, you're my little princess." Her father laughed and immediately showed a touch of hesitation. "Daughter, in addition to this birthday cake, Dad also arranged a date for you." "Another date?" ZD immediately let go of her arm, stepped back, and looked at her father, frowning. Her father smiled bitterly. "Child, you have grown up, and it's time to accept these things. I know you have always been disgusted with these things, but okay. For the sake of the rainbow cake, I will go. But don't expect me to lower my standards." "Which family is it this time?" His father blinked repeatedly. He had prepared these words for a long time, but when he was about to say them, he realized that it was so difficult to say them out loud. "He's a noble among nobles. Of course, he's also a knight." After a long while, the father spoke with difficulty. "All right, I got it. Stop talking." Before her father could finish, ZD interrupted him. She began to walk around the rainbow cake, admiring it carefully. Her whole mind was on it, and she kept clicking her tongue in admiration. Looking at his daughter's happy expression, the father's expression was quite complicated. He opened his mouth several times, wanting to reveal more inside information. ZD occasionally looked up and saw that her father was still standing there. She waved her hand and said, "Dad, you're still here? Go ahead and do your work. Don't worry, I'll deal with it. Even if I don't like him, I won't offend him. Then I'll be going." His father sighed and left with difficulty. The banquet was a gathering of distinguished men and nobles. ZD was undoubtedly the main character of the movie. She received so many gifts that her hands went soft. In the middle of the banquet, ZD walked to a room on the second floor. Today, she was dressed in a pink princess dress with a cute lace hem. On her feet was a pair of white pearl-like high heels, and on her arms was a pair of pink silk gloves. Her hair was curled up like waves, and her amethyst-like eyes were covered by thick eyelashes. It made her cute, noble, and with a hint of charm. Compared to when she first appeared, she now had a bright diamond necklace on her chest, a white jade bracelet inlaid with gold on her wrist, and a small and exquisite crystal crown on her head. These were all gifts given by the nobles at the banquet. She opened them in front of them and happily put them on. Both the host and the guests were happy. In the ballroom downstairs, the commotion caused by the rainbow cake was still ongoing. "This is the most glorious birthday party I've ever had." ZD was in a good mood and knocked on the door. "Come in." A voice came from the room. ZD entered the room and saw a short and fat middle-aged man standing in front of the floor-to-ceiling window. He was holding a wine glass in his hand and looking down at the garden under the night sky. The moonlight shone through the window on his face, revealing his oily face. "My lord." ZD was slightly stunned. She had come to keep an appointment and didn't expect to see the lord of the Garden City. "I think I may have entered the wrong room." ZD was about to leave. "You didn't enter the wrong room, my little beauty." The lord of the Garden City turned around and looked at ZD with a smile. "Your date is me." "What?" ZD widened her eyes and looked at the middle-aged man who was older than her father in shock. "That's impossible." ZD shook her head. Her face was pale, and she kept stepping back. "This joke isn't funny." The lord of the Garden City looked at her with interest. Of course it's not a joke. If you don't believe me, you can look up at the room number. ZD retreated to the door and looked up at the room number. Panic and fear made her delicate body tremble. No, no, this isn't true, ZD murmured. She couldn't believe the fact in front of her eyes. Didn't your father tell you? The Lord of the Garden City felt strange. ZD was shocked. At this moment, she completely understood why her father had such a complicated expression when he talked to her before. The girl's heart was in a mess. Oh, my poor little girl. The Lord of the Garden City walked slowly to ZD. Look at you now. You're like a delicate flower swaying in the wind and rain. Don't worry. I'm a man who cherishes flowers. I'll cherish you. No, no. ZD suddenly woke up. She kept stepping back until she reached the corridor. She kept shaking her head. It shouldn't be like this. It shouldn't be like this. The Lord of the Garden City walked to the door. He looked down at ZD with pity and mockery. In fact, it should be like this. Do you know how big the Wisteria Chamber of Commerce is now? How many influential people have infiltrated it? Do you know that your father can't control the Chamber of Commerce anymore? You and your father don't have a decent status at all. Your bloodline is low and your status is low. In your whole life, you can only be limited to the level of black iron. But you have a huge amount of wealth. The Wisteria Chamber of Commerce is second only to the 6 chambers of commerce. It's a giant. I have to admit, the Lord of the Garden City shrugged. Your father has excellent business skills. This is his fortune and perhaps his misfortune. He doesn't have the qualifications and strength to control such a huge chamber of commerce. He also realized this, so he went through a lot of trouble and made connections all the way until he finally found me. At first, I refused, but later, your father's bargaining chip still moved me. You also know that my brother is the Grand Duke of Wheat Fragrance. Relying on me is like relying on the living gods of the empire. Only in this way can your father keep the results of his hard work and save his life and yours. I will marry you. I will be your husband. So come here. The Lord of the Garden City waved to ZD. Come close to me obediently. Walk into this room, then close the door and take the initiative to fall into my arms. I don't like to take the initiative. No, no. ZD kept shaking her head. The cruel reality had a great impact on her. Her thoughts were in a mess, and it was difficult for her to think properly. I won't walk out of this door, the Lord of the Garden City said proudly. With my status, I won't do anything to pursue you. Young and naive Miss ZD, you are just an extra in this deal. Please understand this. Of course, you're also the key. If there is no marriage between you and me, the other forces in the empire will not give up easily. This is one of the rules of the game called politics. I can't marry you, Lord of the Garden City. I don't want to. ZD's tears flowed down as she cried. The Lord of the Garden City frowned, and his tone became unhappy. Of course, you can completely refuse me. In fact, I'm not willing to sacrifice the precious position of my wife for this deal. Letting you become my wife is a great waste of political resources. I don't care. If you can't make up your mind now, I can give you time to think about it. Now you could go downstairs. I believe that your father is already waiting for you at the corner of the stairs. There will be a good conversation between you father and daughter. ZD's face was pale. She forgot to salute the Lord of the Garden City and staggered downstairs. Sure enough, her father was standing at the corner of the stairs on the first floor. ZD. Her father's expression was very complicated. You lied to me. ZD's eyes were filled with tears as she angrily growled at her father. I didn't lie to you. I never thought of lying to you. My daughter. Her father quickly defended himself. You actually chose to sacrifice me for the Chamber of Commerce. ZD questioned, which is more important, the Chamber of Commerce or me? Of course it's you. You are my only family, my precious daughter. Her father blurted out. Then he covered his face with his hands and sobbed. But I have no choice. I really have no choice. I really want to give up the Chamber of Commerce. I swear to you, I have wanted to give it up more than once. But I can't. I'm already in a difficult position. The Chamber of Commerce has been infiltrated by too many influential people and is not under my control at all. As the founder, I can't retreat to the second line. They won't let go of a person with great influence like me. If I don't choose to rely on one of the forces and choose a side, I'll be eaten by a group of sharks. At that time, both of us will die. ZD was speechless. It was as if she had fallen into an ice cave. After a long time, she said, "Then why didn't you tell me? Would it work if I told you the truth? Would it work?" Her father became agitated. "We're just lowly people, merchants with lowly bloodlines. No matter how much resources we use, we will only be black iron. No matter how much money I spend to hire strong people, even if they are legendary rank, no one will fight against the major forces of the empire for us." Purple Vine Chamber of Commerce. Hee hee, although the vines are winding and lush, no matter how wide they are, without a tree to rely on, they can only lie on the ground and be trampled by others. We have to rely on one of them. Do you understand? My daughter. ZD frowned. Her heart was filled with endless sorrow. "So, you want to sacrifice me? You want me to marry a man who is older than you?" I'm sorry. Her father wanted to go up and hug ZD. But ZD quickly retreated. She firmly shouted to her father, "The person upstairs is not my knight. My future is not like this," she said with a sobbing tone. "ZD, my daughter," her father called out affectionately. But at this time, the city lord of the Flower City urged, "President Purple Vine, you better hurry up. My patience is limited." Her father's face changed, looking like a dark cloud. He anxiously shouted at ZD, "ZD, don't mess around. Do you know how much I have paid for this deal? Your father has put in so much effort and taken so many risks for the Purple Vine Chamber of Commerce. You know a thing or two. You know how hard it has been for me. I can't just stand by and watch it get snatched away by someone else. Help me. Just treat it as repaying me for raising you. All these years, your food, clothes, and high school fees were all given by me. No matter what you want, I've tried my best to satisfy you. Just like the rainbow cake this time. Don't you like it very much?" Looking at her father like this, ZD only felt a chill down her spine. "No, I don't like the rainbow cake. Now it seems that it is just a means for you to achieve your plan. From now on, I won't spend a single cent of your money. I'll return everything you've invested in me." Seeing ZD so determined, her father became angrier. "Enough. What nonsense are you talking about? Without me, you wouldn't even live a day. How can you live such a superior life on your own? Listen to me and marry the city lord of the Flower City. You won't have to worry for the rest of your life." "No, never," ZD roared. She lifted her skirt and turned around to run. Her father called her from behind, telling her to stop, but ZD ran even faster. She ran out the gate of the building and almost sprained her ankle. She lost one of her beautiful pearl-white high-heeled shoes. ZD simply kicked the other one away. She ran into the garden. Her beautiful fluffy princess dress was scratched and torn in the bushes, adding holes to it and becoming tattered. She cried, and her tears fell all the way. Her father's words were still echoing in her ears. "Without me, you wouldn't even live a day. How can you live such a superior life on your own? How hurtful." ZD became angrier and sadder. She tore off the diamond necklace on her chest and took off the expensive, exquisite bracelet. Then she threw it on the side of the road. She finally ran to the gate of the manor. The guards looked at today's protagonist strangely. The princess who was originally dressed up, the apple of the president's eye, was now in ragged clothes. She was panting, and her face was full of tears. "Miss ZD, is there anything I can help you with? Open the gate for me." "No, the president has given a strict order." The guards shook their heads firmly. "ZD," a familiar voice came from behind. ZD turned around and saw Fat Tongue. Her body trembled and tears fell. "Are you also here to persuade me, Uncle Fat Tongue?" Fat Tongue shook his head slowly. "I don't agree with your father's way of doing things. Take my carriage and leave. I will persuade your father." After saying that, he ordered the guards, "Now, open the gate. But I will explain to the president. If something happens, the responsibility will be on me. I won't implicate you." Fat Tongue was firm. The guards could only obey. Fat Tongue escorted ZD all the way to his carriage. Uncle Fat Tongue, thank you. ZD stepped on the stairs of the carriage. She was very grateful to Fat Tongue. Fat Tongue gave a wry smile and said, I watched you grow up, kid. Don't blame your father. He has his difficulties and was forced to do so. No, I will never forgive him. ZD gritted her teeth. She took a deep look at the manor, which was her home for many years. Then, she got into the carriage. Inadvertently, the crystal crown on her head hit the lintel of the door and fell off. ZD looked back at the crown on the ground and closed the door of the carriage without hesitation. Let's go. Back to the Magic Academy. The next moment, her determined voice came from the carriage. Chapter 186. Back at the Magic Academy, ZD breathed a sigh of relief. She knew she was safe for the time being. This Magic Academy had 7 legendary mage towers. There were several passages inside the academy that led to the 16 half-planes. This was one of the best magic academies in the Empire. ZD's father had spent a lot of money to be able to study here. The escape at the birthday banquet was like a dream. Perhaps because of his reputation and face, the Lord of the Flower City did not use this opportunity to make things difficult for her. Her father was still providing ZD with her high living expenses and school fees without interruption. ZD's life seemed to have returned to its former tranquility. However, she understood that her heart had undergone a huge change. She no longer used the money provided by her father every month. She began to rely on herself. There were 3 types of students in the Magic Academy. The first type was the rich and powerful. A superior bloodline naturally gave them a noble status. The second type was the children of rich families. ZD belonged to this type. Her bloodline was low and her talent for magic was not high. Her lifetime achievements were limited. However, when her mentor accepted her as an apprentice, she could receive a large amount of money. The research and cultivation of magic consumed a lot of resources. The third type was the commoner children with outstanding talent. Most of these students had outstanding mental strength and were selected through the Empire selection system. There were also excellent seeds whose bloodline had mutated. If these students could grow up smoothly, they would often become the mainstay of the academy or even the Empire. ZD no longer used the money provided by her father. This made her mentor very unhappy. The academy would give out a large number of tasks every day, mainly to the commoner students. ZD was only a bronze-level magic apprentice. The range of tasks she could accept was very narrow. It was very difficult to complete them. However, she relied on these tasks to survive. Of course, this was not enough for her to be self-sufficient. Her situation became more and more difficult. She no longer had exquisite clothes. She began to compete with other students for tasks with higher rewards. Sometimes she was too tight on money and had to endure starvation. Her situation began to be known. Her former playmates and best friends all distanced themselves from her. Some even mocked and ridiculed her, not letting go of any opportunity to make fun of her. Some male students kept hinting to ZD, "You don't have to live so hard. In fact, your conditions are good. You can make good use of your natural resources. This way, you can easily exchange for a lot of resources. Sometimes, it's beyond your imagination." Without exception, ZD sternly refused all of these implied and veiled requests. She discovered another side of the world. In her eyes, the once glorious, quiet, noble, and serious Magic Academy was now a bloody and cruel place. The mage towers intersected to form a special forest. The law of the jungle, with a strong preyed on the weak, also prevailed here. In this forest, every life had its own way of survival. The strong stayed alone, while the weak stayed in groups. Of course, ZD was not a strong person. At the same time, it was difficult for her to be accepted by a group of weaklings. ZD was like a canary in a bird's nest on a high branch. She suddenly fell to the bottom of the jungle. The lowest layer of the jungle was dark and lightless. If she wanted to survive, she had to grab every ray of sunlight, every bit of food and water. living beings that were as weak as her naturally felt repulsion, wariness, and schadenfreude when they saw her, who was like a canary. She stumbled and fell, and was constantly at the losing end. In the difficult process of survival, there were many temptations and traps. The male students had never stopped hinting at her, and the funds in her account had also accumulated over time. All of this reminded her that as long as she gave up some seemingly insignificant things, she would be able to show her splendor again, and once again stand on a high branch, living a relaxed and glorious life. But ZD never wavered. She sometimes surprised herself with her determination. Slowly, with great difficulty, she stood firm in the competitive Magic Academy, learned how to be self-reliant, and began to be self-sufficient. I can finally rely on my own hands, rely on my own labor to support myself. This sense of accomplishment made her happy and filled her with pride. But at the same time, she felt inferior and discouraged. The harder she worked, the more she felt the barrenness of her potential and the bleakness of her future prospects. According to her spiritual energy and bloodline, the highest achievement she could achieve in her life was only the level of black iron. This meant that in this unique forest, even if she worked hard for her entire life, she would only barely be able to get out of the mud and reach the tree trunk. She could not even climb the lowest branch. Although ZD already knew about this a long time ago. But now, she felt the despair even more deeply. She began to understand her companions, some of the female students who were extremely sarcastic and difficult to her, why they chose to use their bodies in exchange for a relatively easy and superior life. Understanding did not mean approval. As the extremely beautiful beauty of the academy, ZD's perseverance and hard work made her unique, increasing her charm. More and more suitors appeared by her side, but they were all rejected by her. One of the suitors, who was originally ordinary, suddenly bloomed recently. "Miss ZD, do you know why my strength increased by leaps and bounds?" The suitor had been stalking for a long time, and finally found a chance to talk to ZD alone. ZD was slightly startled. "What do you mean? Are you not curious about my performance? My bloodline is clearly similar to yours." The suitor smiled. "Could it be that you have a way to change your bloodline?" ZD was slightly startled and asked. The male student laughed silently and shook his head. "Change your bloodline? How can you have such a naive idea? Bloodline cannot be changed. It is something that is determined from birth. Even if there is a bloodline awakening, it is only because of the original potential. When we entered the academy, our bloodline has already been tested. Our potential is like this. You don't have to have such extravagant hopes in this regard." ZD frowned. Then the male student took a deep breath and said, "My lovely Miss ZD, you have to understand that there are many types of power. Magic, Do Chi, divine arts. And within magic, there are many schools: fire, space, lightning, wind, summoning. Our bloodline has very little potential in these schools, but these schools of magic were also invented one by one and then flourished. Now there is such a brand new school. Perhaps your bloodline can help you even more in this school." ZD frowned. "What are you trying to say?" "Here." The male student took the initiative to hand ZD a rolled-up parchment. ZD opened it, and her pupils shrank as she couldn't help but gasp. "Soul-devouring spell? Necromancy spell? You are crazy." "Ha." The male student's face was full of ridicule. "I am crazy. I am indeed about to be driven crazy by this reality. But I would rather be crazy than learn necromancy, because it can help me change the situation to a certain extent, break the existing limits. You and I are the same. Our aptitudes are too ordinary. Our bloodline is too ordinary. If we don't go crazy, we will always be at the bottom, trampled under others' feet. But using this spell, I can use my soul to devour others' souls, thus strengthening my spiritual power. How about it? Do you accept?" ZD's face turned pale. The suitor in front of her was pale, his eyes were dark, and his expression was deranged. One look, and she could tell that he was abnormal. If she refused, she would almost certainly be attacked by this suitor. Since he had exposed necromancy, he would definitely kill her to silence her. And This was a remote part of the street. And spiritual power. ZD knew too well the significance of spiritual power to a mage. On one hand, she despaired of her own bloodline and aptitudes, and, on the other hand, there was the new school of magic. Perhaps, as the suitor said, she would have a better performance in the school of necromancy. ZD felt her mouth go dry. She knew that she was moved. Her bloodline and aptitudes limited her, causing her to be a black iron her whole life. But maybe if I practice necromancy, my bloodline and aptitudes might be stronger in this aspect. This spell I will accept. After hesitating for a moment, ZD said with difficulty, "Thank you." "Haha, sign the contract first. Don't worry, I won't make things difficult for you. The contract is very loose, just to prevent you from reporting me immediately after you leave." The suitor laughed. There was no problem with the contract, so ZD signed it. "Then, from now on, we're the same kind of people." Haha. Someone passed by, and the suitor immediately hid in the shadows and left. After that, ZD also left worriedly. At first, she put this spell on the shelf, not daring to touch it. She was very hesitant about practicing necromancy. As time passed, her situation became more and more difficult. Her teacher finally lost his patience and stripped her of her status as his subordinate after many failed hints. This made her situation even worse. Without bloodline and aptitudes, and without wealth, ZD seemed to have fallen into a trap of despair, with no way out and nowhere to escape. Finally, late one night, ZD, who was alone, used her trembling fingers to unfold the parchment scroll that recorded necromancy. She began to try practicing necromancy. Her soul was gradually transformed by the power of necromancy. Devour a person's soul, and my spiritual power will increase greatly. The strong temptation almost caused ZD to lose her mind. No, how can I become a criminal? One wrong step, and every step will be wrong. I can't fall into the abyss of sin. Thinking about it carefully, I only need the soul of an intelligent being. I won't lay my hands on humans, but there are many slaves of other races in the slave market. Tempted, ZD began to look for a suitable target in the slave market. Boom! With a loud noise, a house on the street burst into flames. "Don't kill me, don't kill me." The familiar voice stunned ZD, who was passing by. Soon after, she saw the suitor who gave her necromancy break out of the burning house and run for his life. A long spear suddenly shot out like a bolt of lightning. The suitor couldn't dodge in time and was assassinated on the spot. We received a tip-off, and after investigation, he has been corroded and turned into a necromancer. The city guards walked out of the burning house and explained loudly to the onlookers. Accompanying them was a teacher from the Magic Academy. He cast a spell in front of everyone, and under the effect of the spell, the soul of the suitor appeared, visible to the naked eye. His soul shone with a thick gray light, which was the characteristic of a necromancer's power. The passers-by exclaimed, and then roared, "Kill the necromancer! Destroy his soul! Destroy him completely!" "Well done, city guards!" ZD stood to the side, stunned, her face as pale as paper. The human-shaped soul of the suitor was screaming hysterically, making a sharp, ear-piercing sound. Suddenly, he noticed ZD. He rushed towards the girl as if he had gone mad. "No, don't come over!" In a panic, the girl retreated but fell to the ground. A bolt of lightning fell from the sky, destroying the soul of the suitor. "You are also an apprentice of the academy, right? You need to improve your combat skills." The teacher from the Magic Academy destroyed the soul with lightning, walked over, and helped ZD up. "Teacher." ZD's eyes were dazed, her mind filled with the scene of the soul of the suitor being destroyed by the lightning. "Let me check if you have been attacked by an undead spell." The mage tutor once again used a detection spell. After all, the soul of the suitor was about to pounce on ZD. The girl suddenly felt as if she had fallen into an ice cave, her heart palpitating and endless panic drowning her. However, after the spell swept over her, there was no reaction. "Don't worry, You are very healthy." The teacher cast a spell, extinguished the fire in the house, and left. ZD stood there in a daze, waiting for the city guards and the onlookers to disperse before she came back to her senses. Her whole body was drenched in cold sweat, and she dragged her feet and left the place in a daze. After returning, she fell seriously ill and never thought of touching necromancy again. Chapter 187. Back at the Magic Academy, ZD breathed a sigh of relief. She knew she was safe for the time being. This Magic Academy had 7 legendary mage towers. There were several passages inside the academy that led to the 16 half-planes. This was one of the best magic academies in the Empire. ZD's father had spent a lot of money to be able to study here. The escape at the birthday banquet was like a dream. Perhaps because of his reputation and face, the Lord of the Flower City did not take this opportunity to make things difficult for her. Her father also continued to provide ZD with her high living expenses and school fees without interruption. ZD's life seemed to have returned to its former tranquility. However, she understood that her heart had undergone a huge change. She no longer used the money provided by her father every month. She began to rely on herself. There were 3 types of students in the Magic Academy. The first type was the rich and powerful. The superior bloodline naturally gave them a noble status. The second type was the children of rich families. ZD belonged to this type. Her bloodline was low and her talent for magic was not high. Her lifetime achievements were limited. However, when her mentor took her as an apprentice, she could receive a large amount of money. The research and cultivation of magic consumed a lot of resources. The third type was the commoner children with outstanding talent. Most of these students had outstanding mental strength and were selected through the Empire selection system. There were also excellent seeds whose bloodline had mutated. If these students could grow up smoothly, they would often become the mainstay of the academy or even the Empire. ZD no longer used the money provided by her father. This made her mentor very unhappy. The academy would give out a lot of tasks every day, mainly to the commoner students. ZD was only a bronze-level magic apprentice. The range of tasks she could accept was very narrow. It was very difficult to complete them. However, she relied on these tasks to survive. Of course, this was not enough for her to be self-sufficient. Her situation became more and more difficult. She no longer had exquisite clothes and began to compete with other students for tasks with higher rewards. Sometimes she was too tight on money and had to endure hunger. Her situation began to be known. Her former playmates and best friends all distanced themselves from her. Some even mocked and ridiculed her, not letting go of any opportunity to make fun of her. Some male students kept hinting to ZD, "You don't have to live so hard. In fact, your conditions are good. You can make good use of your natural resources. This way, you can easily exchange for a lot of resources." Sometimes, it's beyond your imagination. Without exception, ZD sternly rejected all of these subtle and obscure requests. She discovered another side of the world. In her eyes, the once glorious, quiet, noble, and serious Magic Academy was now a bloody and cruel place. The mage towers intersected to form a special forest. The law of the jungle, where the strong preyed on the weak, also prevailed here. In this forest, every life had its own way of survival. The strong stayed alone, while the weak stayed in groups. Of course, ZD was not a strong person. At the same time, it was difficult for her to be accepted by a group of weaklings. ZD was like a canary in a bird's nest on a high branch. She suddenly fell to the bottom of the jungle. The lowest layer of the jungle was dark and gloomy. If she wanted to survive, she had to grab every ray of sunlight, every bit of food and water. Living beings that were as weak as her naturally felt repulsion, weariness, and schadenfreude when they saw her, who was like a canary. She stumbled and fell, and was constantly at the losing end. In the difficult process of survival, there were many temptations and traps. The male students had never stopped hinting at her, and the funds in her account had also accumulated over time. All of this reminded her that as long as she gave up some seemingly insignificant things, she would be able to show her brilliance once again. She would be able to stand on a high branch once again and obtain a relaxed and glorious life. But ZD did not waver. She sometimes surprised herself with her determination. Slowly, with great difficulty, she stood firm in the competitive Magic Academy, learned to rely on herself, and started to be self-sufficient. I can finally rely on my own hands, rely on my own labor to support myself. This sense of accomplishment made her happy and filled her with pride. But at the same time, she felt inferior and discouraged. The harder she worked, the more she felt the barrenness of her potential and the bleakness of her future. According to her spiritual energy and bloodline, the highest achievement she could achieve in her life was only the level of black iron. This meant that in this unique forest, her lifetime of hard work would only allow her to leave the mud and reach the tree trunk. She could not even climb the lowest branch. Although ZD already knew about this a long time ago. But now, she felt the despair even more deeply. She started to understand her companions, some of the female students who were extremely sarcastic and difficult to her, why they chose to use their bodies to exchange for a relatively easy and superior life. Understanding did not mean approval. As the extremely beautiful beauty of the academy, ZD's persistence and personal efforts made her stand out and increase her charm. More and more suitors appeared by her side, but they were all sternly rejected by her. Her teacher finally lost his patience after many hints and stripped her of her status as his subordinate. ZD could only continue to live in the Magic Academy with the identity of an ordinary student. But she gradually became like a fish in water. Her smart mind, sharp insight, and the connections she built with her good reputation, eloquence, and skill allowed her to seize small business opportunities. At the dock in the morning, the fish market was already open. ZD was dressed casually and strolled in. The fishy smell that she once hated, she did not care at all now. She had been to the fish market many times, and every time she came, she would buy tuna. Tuna was a large type of fish, which could be subdivided into yellowfin, big eye, bluefin tuna, longfin, bonito, and so on. ZD could always choose the best quality tuna. This was the result of her inquiry, the use of the library's rich collection of books, and the experience of buying time and time again. There was a teacher in a Magic Academy who loved to eat tuna the most and issued such missions almost every day. ZD stood out from many competitors with her diligence and strength. Although the mission reward was not much, it was good that there were missions almost every day. Soon, through sharp eloquence, ZD lowered the price to the lowest limit and bought enough tuna. Just as she was about to leave, there was a sudden clamor not far away. ZD looked over and saw two bronze fishermen arguing. She immediately understood that they were fighting for the identity of the Fish King. Almost every day, the fishermen in the fish market would compete for the Fish King of the day. The fisherman who obtained the identity of the Fish King would always have a stall that would be the focus of attention. Often, in less than half a morning, the fish in the stall would be sold out. The rules of the competition for the Fish King were simple. It was a competition of the weight of the fish caught that morning. But the situation today was a little complicated, so there was a dispute. A fisherman who had obtained the identity of the Fish King discovered that there was a person hidden in the large fish he caught. This unfortunate person who fell into the water was dying, and half of his body was still in the fish's stomach. When the fisherman who had failed saw this situation, he immediately said that the weight of a person could not be added to the fish. But the fisherman who had been winning firmly said that the person who fell into the water was food in the big fish's stomach, so it should be the weight of the fish. When he caught the fish, he also overcame the weight of the fish and the person. It was very difficult. The other fishermen sneered at this statement. With such a man in the big fish's stomach, its movements must be slow, and this was the key to being caught. Both sides insisted on their own words and argued endlessly. The spectators were also divided into two factions, each supporting one person. ZD saw that the person who fell into the water was in a bad situation and shouted, "No matter what, we should save him first. TSK, this is a barbarian. What is there to save?" The crowd did not care. If it was a pure human, the crowd could still save him. But barbarians mainly lived in the Frost Continent and were a foreign race. ZD could not bear to see the barbarian die. She hesitated for a moment, but still took out a medicine from her bosom and poured it into the barbarian's mouth. The old barbarian woke up, but he was screaming and could not communicate. He was actually a lunatic. Some people made fun of ZD. This medicine was expensive, but she used it to save a lunatic without any return. ZD sighed. She did not have the heart to save him, but she did not have any intention of getting anything in return. But she did not refute and left with her head lowered. She was not eye-catching. This was because every time she went out, she would use a transformation medicine to temporarily change her appearance. Otherwise, with her original appearance, she would be the center of attention no matter where she went. Days passed, and the lunatic barbarian gradually became a scene in the fish market. He was as thin as firewood, and his hair was disheveled. Although he was crazy, he was not a threat. The fishermen treated him as a target to be teased. Every day, they would play with him and find amusement from him. However, although the old barbarian was crazy, he still had the instinct to eat. He barely survived by eating the organs of the fish that were abandoned in the fish market. ZD came to the fish market almost every day. Sometimes she could see the old barbarian, and sometimes she could not. Most of the time, ZD would bring some food to the old barbarian. One day, a few years later, she found the old barbarian sleeping soundly in the corner of the fish market. Just as she placed the food in front of the old barbarian, he slowly opened his eyes and said in fluent common language, "Thank you, young and kind miss." ZD was shocked. The old barbarian took out a roll of animal skin from his bosom. "I am getting more and more awake. This is the formula of the medicine I made. It is the medicine of our barbarian tribe. Please accept it, young miss. We barbarians always know how to repay kindness." ZD took it, and her gaze was quickly attracted to it. These formulas only use the physical properties of the herbs and are not considered magic medicine. But they are very rare. Even in the library, there are only 1 or 2 copies. "Thank you." ZD raised her head and was stunned speechless. Maybe she was too obsessed with the formulas. The old barbarian had disappeared. For the first time, she realized that this old barbarian had a story. The influence of this small adventure became more and more obvious in the years after ZD left. The more ZD studied, the more she found that the medicine on the animal skin was different from magic medicine. Although it was obviously a summary of the barbarian tribe's experience, it lacked the meticulous spirit and research advocated by the magicians. But the practical value was quite high. ZD's previous teacher was the best at alchemy. Other than practicing magic, ZD also studied a branch of alchemy, pharmaceutics. A few months later, ZD's research began to show some results. A year later, these results became more and more. Her reputation of selling some ordinary medicine began to spread among the ordinary citizens. Some students even gave up on the expensive magic medicine because they were embarrassed and chose ZD's barbarian medicine. "After I graduate, maybe I can open an ordinary medicine shop in the city." Just as she began to look forward to the beautiful future of this business, bad news suddenly came. Father was dead. When ZD first heard the news, her first reaction was to not dare to believe it. Maybe this is just a trick Father used to lure me home. All these years, she had never returned home. But then, Fat Tongue and many other elders sent her letters one after another, telling her the cruel truth. Endless grief drowned ZD. Although ZD hated her father, she never thought that one day she would hear the news of his death. "He's the only family I have left in this world." ZD washed her face with tears. The feeling of loneliness, loss, and insignificance was like an endless wave that swept through her heart. Although ZD had become independent in these years, she could rely on herself and live independently in this city. although she did not spend a single cent of the money her father sent her. When her father truly died, she realized the true position her father had in her heart and in her life. Although she had a falling out with her father, although she hated him, she still loved him deeply. In the next few months, the Wisteria Chamber of Commerce was in a state of chaos. The nobles quickly divided up the businesses of the Wisteria Chamber of Commerce. Many of the members of the Chamber of Commerce changed their allegiance and voluntarily or were forced to join others. There were many letters to ZD. Most of the letters were to persuade ZD to stand up and protect the foundation left by the old president. Because according to tradition and the laws of the empire, she was the only successor of the Chamber of Commerce. But ZD turned a deaf ear to them. She hid in the Magic Academy and did not go out again. She also abandoned the fish market mission that she had persevered for years. She knew that the Magic Academy was her safe haven. It was the only place that could protect her and give her safety at this stage. Finally, after a few months, the sumptuous feast of many factions slowly came to an end. The Wisteria Chamber of Commerce was almost only left with a name. Most of the valuable businesses had become the property of others. The once glorious super chamber of commerce that had a strong tendency to surpass the traditional 6 chambers of commerce had completely fallen into the mud in just a few months. There were those who sighed with emotion, those who were fearful, those who kicked him when he was down, and those who were indifferent bystanders. Finally, after everything was settled, ZD left the Magic Academy. During this time, she hid in the Magic Academy. Now, she needed to attend her father's funeral. Little ZD, don't feel guilty. What you're doing is right. Those people who tried to persuade you to come out all have ulterior motives. They want to use you to fight for more benefits. Fat Tongue led a group of people and came to her rescue. But be careful. The crocodile is full, and the ferocious piranhas are still swimming in the muddy water. After traveling in a low-key manner for a few days, ZD and her group arrived at the small town at the foot of the mountain. The small town was filled with a joyous atmosphere. A circus came to the small town and brought the townspeople one of the few entertainment activities of the year. Clowns, fireworks, colorful balloons, puppet shows, brown bears stepping on barrels, dancing monkeys, and from the east, snake dancers playing flutes. ZD's carriage slowly moved through the crowd. The carriage was silent. ZD's heart was filled with sorrow. The inside and outside of the carriage were 2 distinct worlds. Opening the curtains, ZD looked up and saw the manor on the hillside. It used to be her home, and the manor didn't seem to have changed much. Her mind flashed back to her childhood, the scenes of her life in the manor, in this small town. Every year when the circus came, she would also visit and play with the company of the guards. Even a smoking parrot in the circus was enough to amaze and fascinate her when she was young. Now she was back. She had grown up, whether in age or experience. The beautiful manor in the past revealed a sad atmosphere. The incomparably mysterious circus in her memory could no longer surprise and move ZD as much as she did back then. Everything was the same, but people had changed. The convoy slowly passed through the downtown area. Under a simple stage modified from a carriage, a group of children sat around. On the stage was a puppet show performing the story that ZD loved to hear the most in her childhood: the princess, the devil, and the knight. Hearing those familiar lines, ZD recalled the scene when she came to the small town with her mother. "Mom, the devil is so hateful. I want to defeat it. I can fight very well. The gardener's son is 2 years older than me, but he is no match for me." Her mother smiled and said, "My little princess, fighting is not something a lady should do. Don't worry. You don't have to do anything. You will have your knight. He will protect you for the rest of your life." "My knight?" Childhood ZD's eyes sparkled. "Where is he?" "Well, Mom is not too sure, but what is certain is that he will definitely appear in your life." "Mom, what's in that tent?" "That's the diviner's tent." "What is divination? I want to see it." "It's too late. Wait until next year when Mom brings it. Okay? My cute little princess, we should go home and sleep. Be good." "Oh." Childhood ZD lowered her head and answered reluctantly. The convoy finally reached the end of the street, after which was the mountain road. At the end of the mountain road was the manor. A blue tent stood at the end of the street. This was the diviner's tent. There were very few people. It was very deserted, in sharp contrast to the other stalls in the circus. Divination was a type of prophecy. It was a very deep magical field, but most of the diviners among the people were mysterious, swindling, and deceiving people. Perhaps it was because they came to the town every year. The townspeople knew about the diviners in the circus very well and no longer had any interest in patronizing them. "Stop the car, I want to come down," ZD suddenly said excitedly. She got out of the car and left the guards outside the tent. The light in the tent was dim, as if deliberately creating a mysterious atmosphere. ZD looked at the furnishings in the tent with interest, the sharp eyes she had trained over the years. She immediately judged a lot of fake herbs, as well as many fake magic tools. She was disappointed, but not surprised. "Customer, what do you want a divine?" the diviner asked. Only then did ZD cast her gaze over. The diviner was an old woman with deep wrinkles, a dark blue 9-pointed star in the center of her forehead. She casually sat down. "Please divine, when will the night in my life come?" The diviner began to touch the obviously fake crystal ball on the short table, and her mouth was muttering something that was difficult to hear, or perhaps she herself could not understand. The diviner began to frown. The sound of her mouth became more and more anxious. She seemed to have encountered a difficult situation. Suddenly, her whole body convulsed. Her eyes rolled up, only revealing the whites of her eyes. The corners of her eyes, nostrils, mouth, and ears all flowed out bright red blood. She cried out in horror, I see your destiny. In your destiny, there is no night. Only, a beast, no, a monster. Monster!" ZD was shocked and stood up subconsciously. The guards outside the tent heard the commotion and immediately came in. The diviner was lying on the table. Her eyes were actually white. She stretched out a strange claw-like old hand to grab ZD. The guards immediately came forward. One of them had already pulled out half a sword. "Stop, don't make a fuss. This is just an alarmist trick." ZD calmed down and laughed. She threw a silver coin on the short table. "Here you go. Good performance." She turned and left, the guards following closely behind. Chapter 188. It was drizzling and the sky was gloomy. ZD's father was buried at the back of the manor, together with her mother. This was the last wish of ZD's father when her mother died. At that time, when he found his first pot of gold, in order to marry ZD's mother, he used almost all of his wealth to buy this hill and build this manor. For ZD's father, this was the proof of his glorious life, the beginning of his happiness, but also the end of his life. The priest was praying as the coffin was lowered into the grave. A group of people dressed in black were silent. The atmosphere was solemn. ZD stood at the front, silently staring at the coffin in front of her. Her last family member in this world was buried here. Her face was expressionless, but her heart was filled with grief and hatred. Falling off a horse and dying? What a ridiculous cause of death. Her father was the chairman of a super chamber of commerce. With a black iron rank cultivation, he also had many powerful protective items. Even if he was riding a fierce horse, he wouldn't have died like this. But such a ridiculous reason was accepted by people. Ignorant people really believed it, lamenting the impermanence of fate. But those who understood the rules of society and had wisdom understood. This was actually a cold and ferocious warning to the lower class. The purple vine chamber of commerce was so big, but the chairman of the chamber of commerce could suddenly fall off a horse and die one day. Who is the ruler of this empire? You should know. After the priest finished praying, someone took the shovel and filled the grave with dirt. Not long after, the funeral was finished. "Thank you, priest." ZD, as a family member, thanked the priest. "Beautiful lady, please restrain your grief. May your father be guided by God and ascend to God's kingdom of heaven." The priest comforted her. ZD's father was a believer of the god of wealth, but he wasn't devout. Believers of the god of wealth The devout ones were mostly poor, while the rich ones were mostly ordinary believers. This made sense. Those who had the ability to earn wealth would take the fruits of their hard work for themselves, rather than giving it to God. Those who were poor and didn't have the ability to earn wealth could only rely on prayer, so their faith was usually devout. Of course, there were also rich fanatics, but their numbers were much lower than other gods. Zedi knew very well that it was impossible for her to receive the priest's blessing. Not to mention her father's faith, the most important point was that after her father fell off the horse and died, his soul also dissipated. In this world, the death of a person did not mean that the secret was buried deep. Be it magic or divine spells, there were many ways to surpass death and unearth a lot of information. The dissipation of the soul was clearly the work of the murderer. The mastermind didn't want to leave any evidence behind. He wasn't worried that ZD or the people from the Chamber of Commerce would do anything, but he wanted to prevent this information from falling into the hands of other influential forces. As a result, ZD and the others still did not know who the enemy who killed their father was, and which force was behind it. But I will still do my best to investigate the truth and avenge you. My father. ZD stood there like a statue, not moving for a long time. Fat Tongue sighed and patted her on the shoulder. Don't be too sad, little ZD. The president actually already had a premonition. He has always loved you and felt guilty towards you. After you rejected the city lord of the Flower City, he withstood the pressure and never forced you again. All these years, you rejected his funds and never used a single cent. Instead, you worked hard on your own, which made him feel distressed and very gratified. On many private occasions, he used your small achievements to show off to me. He had such an excellent daughter. ZD was silent for a while. Uncle Fat Tongue, I want to be alone with my father for a while. Okay. Fat Tongue nodded, turned around, and waved his hand, motioning for the others to stay away from the tombstone. This group of people stood in the distance, looking at ZD and the tombstone, and began to talk in a low voice. How long will she stay? How long will we have to wait? Someone was impatient. Humph! If she hadn't been hiding in the academy, how could the president be buried until now? Someone expressed dissatisfaction with ZD. Even if there was a conflict between father and daughter, it shouldn't be like this. According to the schedule, the meeting will be next. Hurry up, I'm very tight on time. Fat Tongue turned around and looked at the crowd with a cold gaze. He indicated, if you want to wait, you can continue to wait. If you don't want to wait and are tight on time, you can leave directly. Naturally, you don't have to participate in the meeting. Everyone's discussion immediately stopped. Fat Tongue looked at ZD again, his heart filled with worry. This group of people who attended the funeral were all senior members of the Chamber of Commerce, or rather, veterans. But now they all had different thoughts. Some wanted to do it alone, some wanted to revive the Chamber of Commerce. And of course, there were also spies. Compared to her father, ZD didn't have any prestige in these people, so she definitely couldn't control the situation. When the meeting started, ZD said directly, I don't know how to operate the Chamber of Commerce. If you have anything to say, just say it. Then I'll say it directly. My main business is the production of griffin seats. But currently, all the alchemists in the Chamber of Commerce have been poached away, and I still have a large order to complete. I need the Chamber of Commerce to provide me with enough alchemists to help me get through this difficult time. My flower business in Stone Statue City has also been suppressed. Many merchants in the city have joined forces to compete with me. They hired street thugs to interfere with my store, and they also hired thieves to try to burn down my grain depot. I caught the thieves, but the city lord and the city guards are on their side. There is no justice at all. My banks in Fiery Ash Province are also suffering from a run. Currently, my capital chain is directly broken, and I need a large amount of funds. Everyone was in a difficult situation. In the past, the Purple Vine Chamber of Commerce was very large and prosperous. Its business territory was rapidly expanding, and even the Chamber of Commerce's president was afraid of it. But now, everyone knew that the Purple Vine Chamber of Commerce had collapsed, and most of its businesses were divided among the major forces. The crocodiles that had eaten their fill slowly left the scene, and the piranhas that were attracted by the smell of blood swarmed over. Everyone saw the remaining weakness of the purple vine Chamber of Commerce, and everyone wanted a bite. The veterans of the Chamber of Commerce were miserable. This time, they participated in the meeting to ask for help. Facing many requests, ZD slowly shook her head. I can't help everyone. In fact, I don't even know what to do. Miss ZD, it's actually very simple. The veteran in charge of the bank smiled. We know that in the past few years, your father has been sending money to your account to pay for your tuition. But in fact, this amount of money is huge, far more than what you need for your studies. I think this should be the president's preparation for a rainy day. He prepared this in advance to deal with our current situation. ZD's Magic Academy had a high status, and the assets in her private account were often safe. ZD blinked. You mean you want me to lend this money to you? Yes, as long as I get through this crisis. I will repay you many times over, beautiful lady, the veteran said. ZD nodded. I agree. In fact, I am willing to do my best to help everyone. The veteran smiled, and some began to praise ZD's kindness and responsibility. She was very much like a president. ZD thought for a moment. I am willing to take out 100,000 gold coins as a loan, and I hope you can use Black Hair Horse Farm as collateral. At the same time, the interest will be 10% per year. The veteran's smiles froze. Fat Tongue was secretly amused. On the way here, he had warned ZD many things, but after communicating with her, he was pleasantly surprised to find that ZD was far more mature than he had imagined. The veteran in charge of the bank also changed his expression and stood up from his seat. This is robbery. Chapter 189. Under the night sky, the manor was quiet. ZD slowly opened the door and entered the room. She lit a candle. Her father's study was still the same, not much different from what she remembered. The Fong family wasn't big, but the lighting was good. If it was daytime, the sunlight would shine through the glass and illuminate the room. The study was simply furnished. There were no oil paintings on the wall, but a huge map of the continent. On the map, ZD's father made many red and blue symbols. Every time the Wisteria Chamber of Commerce expanded to a certain place, he would make corresponding changes on the map. ZD stopped in front of the huge map. Her childhood memories surfaced. When she was very young, whenever her father had some achievements, he would happily invite her mother to look at the map and tell her about the development of the Chamber of Commerce. Her mother would often tease him as if he was a child. Her father would point at some cities that hadn't been marked on the map and tell her how long he estimated it would take to expand the Chamber of Commerce to these places. At that time, how many businesses would improve and how many businesses would have their costs greatly reduced. Looking at her father talking nonstop, ZD's mother would gradually show a worried expression. Don't work too hard. Just do enough. She would advise her father. Her father would shake his head. Not enough. Not enough. There's still a long way to go. I want to set up branches here, here, and here. I want to set up branches everywhere. I won't let go of any important cities. He did it. ZD looked up at the map on the wall. All kinds of symbols covered all the important cities in the empire. In addition, there were many special villages and towns. What an amazing business achievement. It was hard to imagine that this was something a Black Iron rank could do. But it was this great achievement that became the cause of his death. ZD retracted her gaze and slowly walked to the back of the desk. On the huge mahogany desk, there were brushes, ink, documents, and a small easel. On the easel was a portrait of her father, mother, and ZD standing together. In the portrait, ZD was still very young, not even 4 years old. She was in her father's arms, her small head resting on her father's shoulder as she fell asleep. ZD slowly sat down on the leather chair that her father always sat on. Her petite figure made the seat seem wide and large. The seat had been there for a long time. Even though ZD was very light, it still creaked. ZD thought about how her father sat and subconsciously imitated him. She put her elbows on the table and clenched her hands in a fist to support her chin or her lips. This was what she often saw when she opened the door to her father's study to remind him that the light was still on late at night. "Father," ZD murmured and thought of the meeting that took place during the day. When the elders no longer looked down on ZD, what followed was a difficult negotiation. Although ZD had experienced a lot of hardships in life over the years and had been influenced a lot since she was young, she was still inexperienced when it came to personal contact and participation in such business negotiations. Fortunately, Fat Tongue had been publicly supporting her. He had opened his mouth many times and pointed out the traps in the various clauses. Most of the matters had not been settled yet. A small number of them had reached a preliminary cooperation agreement. Some of them publicly left the Wisteria Chamber of Commerce. One of them was the doyen who controlled the banking business. ZD did not make things difficult for these people at all. She released a strong signal to the outside world. "If you want to leave, then leave. I am not afraid of any of you leaving. Even if all of you leave, I am not afraid." She knew that these people did not accept the recruitment. On one hand, they did not like the conditions of the various forces. On the other hand, the powerful forces looked down on them. This time, they came here to participate in the funeral only on the surface. Their real intention was to take out real benefits from the president's faction to subsidize themselves. However, they did not expect that ZD was no longer as simple and inexperienced as they remembered. ZD firmly held on her own interests and never relaxed at all. Originally, the president's faction had suffered the greatest loss due to the drastic changes in the Wisteria Chamber of Commerce. ZD would only be interested in a profitable partnership with her. ZD, who was now curled up in the leather chair, had two main feelings. The first was that she was rich. Even if she lost more than 80%, the remaining 20% was still a considerable amount of wealth. The second was that it was difficult. The battle of wits and courage during the negotiations and the war of words made ZD's head ache until now. At the same time, ZD was not confident that she would be in control of so much wealth for the first time. Can I do it well? Can I hold on to this wealth? Can I support the Wisteria Chamber of Commerce? ZD, you must do it. This is your father's painstaking effort. At the same time, it is also your hope for revenge. Although she had never expressed it to others, ZD had already made up her mind to take revenge. During the day at the funeral, ZD already knew what Fat Tongue said to her. In fact, ZD was already well aware of it. After these years of training, she understood a principle very well. It was far better to see a person through actions than through words. The hatred from before had dissipated and turned into a complicated feeling for her father, who could not make mistakes, especially when facing the powerful forces of almost the entire empire. Moreover, he had never really forced his daughter to do anything. It was only the first day, but ZD had deepened her understanding of her father. Ha ha! At this moment, a sudden burst of laughter broke ZD's reminiscence. Then, the door of the study was suddenly pushed open. A young man strode in with his head held high and came in front of ZD. He was very short, like a dwarf. His gray hair was very eye-catching because of his explosive hairstyle, which was extremely flamboyant. He held a dagger in his hand, but it gave the young man a heroic feeling of taking out a huge sword. "Who are you?" ZD asked. "Ha!" The young man with the explosive hairstyle laughed loudly. "Good question." He suddenly lowered his voice, obviously deliberately creating a hoarse and vicissitude tone. He recited, "I come from the shadows, I dance on the tip of the blade. Fate chose to let me down, but I chose to kill. God gave me salvation, but I would rather destroy. Carrying out love and true evil. I am me, the genius of the world's #1 assassin, Luo Shi. Young girl, I have come to take your life. Make your move, let me kill you." ZD was very shocked. Although it was the first time she experienced an assassination, she had never heard of such a grand assassination. No matter how strange this assassin was, the murderous aura on his body could not be faked. "Guard!" ZD raised her voice and shouted. The young man Luo Shi laughed and said proudly, "Ha ha, you can scream, Even if you scream until your throat is broken, no one will come save you, because they have already been knocked down by me. ZD coldly snorted, her arm shook slightly, and a small pinch of powder fell from her wide sleeves. Magic, lime technique. She uttered a few short syllables, and the powder, as a casting material, quickly exploded, turning into an even finer powder mist, suddenly filling the whole study. Then, she immediately jumped, nimbly leaving the study table, and rolled to the corner of the wall. During this time, she had already used the casting material in her bosom to start a short chant. Magic, soft sound technique. When she stood up, the soft sound technique was successfully cast, making ZD's movements and chanting sound extremely soft. Then, she once again cast the third magic, mirror image technique. A mirror image that looked very similar to her dash to the door. Wow, not bad. Luo Shi's voice suddenly came from behind ZD. ZD had just started to feel shocked when Luo Shi's dagger handle lightly touched her back, and in a flash, Do Chi was transmitted, penetrating into ZD's body, locking her in place, as stiff as a rock, unable to move. Lime technique is almost instantaneous. Soft sound technique is also very sharp. The choice of mirror image technique is also not bad. Luo Shi's comments, full of interest, made ZD's heart sink to the bottom of the valley. Then, Luo Shi burst out with Do Chi, blowing away all the powder mist in the room. Silver rank. Seeing the color of the Do Chi, ZD felt as if she had fallen into an ice cave. At the same time as fear, there was also anger and hatred. Were you the one who killed my father? The girl questioned. Luo Shi shook his head. That was not me. Sneaky assassinations were not befitting of an assassin. I am a man who aspires to be the best assassin in the world. How could I do such a tasteless thing? Although they had only met once, ZD naturally chose to believe Luo Shi's words. Luo Shi placed his dagger horizontally on ZD's neck. Because he was short, in order to make this move, he had to step on the wall with both feet, using Do Chi to attach to the soles of his shoes, making his posture very stable. The information said that you were busy making a living, neglecting to practice magic. But you secretly advanced to iron rank, and the way you fought just now, you must have practiced hard. TSK, you really are a cunning girl. Remember, the one who killed you is me, Luo Shi, a genius destined to be the best assassin in the world. Wait, dwarf. How much does it cost to hire you? I'll pay double. ZD shouted. Luo Shi, who was behind her, was stunned, then immediately became furious. Arg, I'm going to explode from anger. I am the best assassin in the world. I must have the best professional ethics. Also, I am a human, a pure human, not a dwarf. Go to hell. The dagger carried Luo Shi's anger, fiercely slashing towards ZD's neck. Just when ZD thought that she was going to die, she suddenly heard Luo Shi's panic scream and then disappeared without a trace. A trace of blood was left on the wall. What happened? ZD suddenly found that she could move again. It was I who saved you. The new chairman of the Wisteria Merchant Guild, a goblin about the same height as Luo Shi, appeared in front of ZD. He had a goblin's bald head, green skin, and a long hooked nose. What a pity, what a pity. I had already prepared a spell, and when he attacked, I wanted to kill him on the spot. I didn't think that this kid would be able to dodge and escape. He's not old, but his combat aura is close to the gold level and is about to undergo a qualitative change. This talent is very rare. The goblin looked at the blood on the wall and slowly evaluated. Gold mage. ZD was shocked. The goblin's life force was actually at the gold level. No wonder he could scare Luo Shi away. You are? ZD asked after bowing. You can call me Lord Sharp Diamond. My master is War Dealer. Goblin Sharp Diamond smiled proudly. War Dealer. ZD was shocked. Your father and my master, War Dealer, have always had business relations. A few months ago, your father sent a letter for help to Labyrinth Island. Unfortunately, at that time, I was cooperating with my master in an important magic experiment, and the letter was shelved by the tower's spirit. When the letter was discovered, my master ordered me to rescue you, Goblin Sharp Diamond explained. Thank you for saving my life, my lord. ZD bowed again, her face full of gratitude and joy. However, in her heart, there was a cold current that flowed through her. The scene just now was clearly Sharp Diamond using her as bait to lure Luo Shi into revealing his weakness. It was clear that in Sharp Diamond's heart, killing Luo Shi was the first priority and saving ZD was the second. Combined with his explanation just now, ZD's father's letter for help was not taken seriously by him and the ward dealer. Otherwise, why would they be delayed by the experiment? However, ZD's father should have a close business relationship with the ward dealer. For ZD's father to send a letter for help to the ward dealer, other than being anxious, he also had a certain degree of confidence that the request would succeed. Now that the ward dealer had sent his student, Sharp Diamond, to help, it meant that ZD's father was of some use to the ward dealer. Thinking about it, it's not strange. The ward dealer is 7th on the wanted list, a recognized alchemist grandmaster, and a veteran arms dealer. If he wants to sell arms, his best choice is the Wisteria Chamber of Commerce. Only the 6 major chambers of commerce are larger than the Wisteria Chamber of Commerce, but they are all controlled by the Empire's nobles. Father must have helped the ward dealer sell a lot of arms. That's why he got help. Unfortunately, it's too late. Damn it. He just saved me in passing. The main point is to kill Luo Shi. This means that he knows the current situation of the Wisteria Chamber of Commerce, and I'm of little use to him. In a few breaths, ZD's thoughts turned like lightning, and she understood the situation. Her eyes flashed, and she immediately said, Sir Sharp Diamond, although my father has passed away, I have taken over his position. From now on, I am willing to serve you and the ward dealer with all my strength. Oh, Sharp Diamond was stunned and looked at ZD in a new light. Your expression changed just now. It should be the first time you learned of your father's secret business. In order to protect yourself, you want to borrow our strength. Haha, you little girl, interesting. Nothing can escape your eyes, sir. ZD was very sincere. I'm very afraid. I didn't think that I would attract an assassination attempt as soon as I took over. In order to save my life, I'm willing to take greater risks. And I also believe that among all the chambers of commerce on the continent, only mine is worthy of your investment. That's right. Sharp Diamond nodded. We've worked with your father for a long time, and we do trust you. Although the Wisteria Chamber of Commerce exists in name only, this name is known throughout the world, so it's still very valuable. But with your current strength, you don't have the qualifications to work with us and receive our protection. Then how do I qualify? ZD asked with a smile. However, Sharp Diamond's next words made her face pale instantly. Then let's have a marriage alliance. Chapter 190. You can open your eyes now. Sharp Drill's voice could be heard. ZD slowly opened her eyes and found that she was no longer at the dock, but at an alchemy factory. The scale of the alchemy factory was huge. The growth lines were running, and a large number of explosive dumbbells were being accurately controlled by the mechanical arms, quickly filling the key liquid. Sharp Drill led ZD around for a while, and suddenly said, Teacher is already up. Follow me. Passing through the gate made of legendary materials, ZD came to the center of the alchemy factory. The countless coffins shocked her. On the first floor of the central tower, she saw the ward dealer. This legendary mage, the world's top alchemist grandmaster. At this moment, the life force of a legendary mage was somewhat weak. It was obvious that he was injured. He was missing 3 fingers on both hands, which were now soaked in the sapphire gold coffin. The sapphire gold coffin was filled with some kind of green liquid. The green liquid was translucent and seemed to contain an extremely strong vitality. After a few breaths, the ward dealer's severed fingers grew back in the green liquid. He pulled his hand back, shook off the green liquid, moved it a few times, and nodded with satisfaction. Then the ward dealer looked at ZD. As you can see, there's a price to pay for studying alchemy. ZD's face was full of shock. Sir Ward Dealer, What is this healing liquid? It can actually heal a legendary level severed limb in an instant. If this kind of medicine is sold, even if the sales are not big, it will definitely cause a sensation in the world. Haha. The ward dealer laughed. You are like your father. When he first came here, he was fascinated by the alchemy cannon. He suggested the price of the cannon to me, and in a few words, he came up with a sales plan. Although he is only a black iron, he does have a rare talent for business. I have a lot of business partners, but any goods that reach your father will sell the most. Thank you for your praise, sir. ZD bowed again. The ward dealer nodded again, his eyes showing admiration. You are more courageous than your father, and your eloquence is also very good. You have successfully convinced the 100 Needles family and facilitated this marriage on your own. You have chosen a very good target, very suitable. ZD thanked him verbally, but there was a shadow in her heart. The first night she took over as the president of the Wisteria Chamber of Commerce, Luo Shi tried to assassinate her. If it wasn't for her father's request for help, which led the gold-ranked mage Sharp Drill to come here and chase away Spiral Rock, ZD would have been dead by now. Clearly, some people were unwilling to see the Wisteria Trading Company have a new president with a strong personality. ZD didn't know what kind of power or authority the mastermind was, or if it was one of the participants of the meeting that day. In order to protect herself, ZD needed someone strong to protect her. Sharp Diamonds and war traffickers were obviously the best choices. Because they were criminals jointly wanted by the various continents, their positions were naturally clear. They needed ZD, but the rich and powerful had plenty of substitutes. Sharp Diamond had proposed a marriage alliance to ZD. Only when ZD met the requirements would she have the qualifications to cooperate with Sharp Diamond and the war traffickers. The current Wisteria Chamber of Commerce was too weak. It was worlds apart from its peak state in the past. In the past, ZD had rejected the marriage alliance. But now, in order to protect herself and avenge her father, ZD had no choice but to choose a marriage alliance. She succeeded. She formed a close alliance with the 100 Needles clan and formed a marriage alliance with Jinjin. Thanks to the war in the south, the weakened 100 Needles clan needed the Wisteria Trading Company now. The war trafficker continued. This green liquid can't be sold. The true power to heal me isn't this liquid, but the divine artifact of this sapphire gold coffin. ZD's eyes widened. Is it the legendary divine artifact that can revive the Quetzalcoatl god? The war trafficker nodded, then shook his head. It is indeed the divine artifact of the Quetzalcoatl god, but it's not complete. As you can see, this divine artifact still lacks a coffin lid. At the same time, I'm not a follower of the Quetzalcoatl god, so I don't have the corresponding divine power. I used alchemy to steal a part of this divine artifact's power, but creating this green liquid is already the limit. As long as you leave the range of the alchemy array, the green liquid will immediately lose its effect. Even within the array, the green liquid is far from being able to revive a life. So that's how it is. ZD sighed. The goods for you have already been prepared. They are already in the warehouse. The war trafficker called the tower genie and opened a portal. ZD followed the war trafficker and Sharp Drill to the warehouse, where she saw the substitute. The substitute's eyes were closed, and he was sleeping inside a wooden box. The box was marked with the number EX 866. Seeing the substitute's appearance, ZD was shocked. It was so similar. The substitute was simply carved from the same mold as Jinjin. The war trafficker laughed. This is currently my proudest work. The adjustment of the appearance is only a minor detail. His original body was a silver knight. In order to perfectly replace Jinjin, I successfully fused the Golden Queen Bee's bloodline into his body. ZD's expression suddenly changed, revealing a look of shock. The Golden Queen Bee was a legend rank magic beast. The bloodline of the 100 Needles family could be traced back to it. The 100 Needles family's aura arts, fighting skills, secret skills, and so on were all based on the foundation of the bloodline. After many years of creation, improvement, and so on, They were perfected step by step to their current state. Before instilling Zhang Jin's memories, I had already instilled the memories of the powerhouse of the Hundred Needles family into him through a memory crystal. After a series of battles and training, his muscles have also been adjusted to the best state for the Hundred Needles family's fighting skills. His memories have also been carefully filtered and modified. There is no lack of common sense. Once Zhang Jin's memories are obtained, they will be very compatible with his current physical state. The more ZD heard, the more frightened she became. After the war trafficker finished speaking, he looked at her meaningfully. As for the Golden Queen Bee's bloodline, I spent a lot of money to secretly purchase it from the giant mouth hunting group. Legend Rank Blood, TSK. I have to say that our luck is very good. ZD's face became completely pale. Haha, it seems that you have already noticed. The war trafficker's smile grew wider. Teacher, I told you that she's a smart little girl of the human race. Pointed Diamond agreed. ZD's mouth was dry, and her heart raced. So, the plan has changed? Yes. The war trafficker looked at her with admiration, but he did not explain. Instead, he said to Pointed Diamond, tell her in detail. Pointed Diamond explained, originally, we wanted to support and protect you, and let you sell our firearms. Of course, the current Wisteria Chamber of Commerce is not qualified to cooperate with us, but you accepted my suggestion, or rather, a test. You succeeded. You have a marriage alliance with the Hundred Needles family. With this identity, as long as Zhang Jin succeeds in the competition for the position of City Lord, your Wisteria Chamber of Commerce will be able to gain a foothold and sell our firearms in large quantities on the Wasteland continent. Whether it was magic or alchemy research, large amounts of experiments and resources were required. Through selling firearms, the war trafficker and Pointed Diamond, this pair of master and disciple, could earn money and invest it in cultivation and research. The results of their research and cultivation could be used to create more advanced firearms and earn more money. For so many years, the war trafficker had been in a virtuous cycle. In recent years, he had switched to life alchemy and made many achievements. But recently, Pointed Diamond continued, our alchemy has made major breakthroughs. We can perfectly fuse a legendary bloodline into a life form. Of course, only a part of the bloodline, and the life form's quality has to be at least silver. Together with the memory crystal, we can create a Zhenjin, a perfect puppet under our control. Our luck is really good. Coincidentally, the Jizhong hunting group killed a legendary golden queen bee. We arranged an ambush, and the Hundred Needles family's direct subordinates to Zhang Jin's side were all wiped out. Technological breakthroughs and growth in strength inflated the war trafficker and Pointed Diamond's ambitions. They were no longer satisfied with supporting ZD, but wanted to invade White Sand City and even began to erode and control the Hundred Needles family. But I have an engagement. If I harm Jinjin, I will suffer a backlash. ZD expressed her concern. Don't worry, I will personally modify the magic contract on you. The war trafficker laughed. ZD's heart was cold. She deeply realized that cooperating with the war trafficker was like asking a tiger for its skin. ZD could reluctantly accept the previous plan, because she could use the war trafficker and the Hundred Needles family to benefit from both sides. She would take the initiative to reveal her trade relationship with the war trafficker to the Hundred Needles family, which would greatly increase ZD's value in the eyes of the Hundred Needles family and protect ZD's freedom. But now it was different. Now, the war trafficker and the others wanted to deal with Zhang Jin and the Hundred Needles family. ZD was too weak and could only be trapped in their conspiracy. Once the matter was exposed and she murdered Jin Jin, the only heir, ZD would become the mortal enemy of the Hundred Needles family. And at the same time, she would be hated by all the nobles in the upper echelons of the empire. The new plan was too risky, but ZD had no right to refuse. I am not cooperating with the war trafficker. I am just their chess piece. Her heart was filled with sorrow, but ZD nodded to the master and disciple in front of her and said in a heavy tone, a great new plan. Soon after, ZD staggered out of the magic circle. The war trafficker was worthy of being a legendary mage. He He personally modified the magic contract on ZD. Just after the magic ritual, ZD was dizzy and her spirit was not light. But the war trafficker was prepared and handed ZD a potion. ZD did not hesitate at all and drank it in one gulp. Her condition quickly improved. After a few breaths, her spirit was completely healed and even increased a little compared to before. The girl's face slightly changed. Her undamaged spirit allowed ZD to quickly sense the magic contract. The war trafficker laughed. I just modified it and transferred its original target to the body of the substitute. This way, this magic contract also became a strong evidence of the substitute's disguise. From now on, you and the substitute's life are linked together. Both of you share life. Of course, the highest authority is in my hands. As long as I think about it, this magic contract will change dramatically in an instant and take away both of your lives. Unless I die one day, this contract will stay with you forever. Human girl. ZD's face was pale. The war trafficker did things flawlessly, not giving ZD and the substitute any room to rebel. If nothing unexpected happened, from now on, ZD can only be a pawn of the war trafficker. The only thing the substitute lacks is Zhun Jin's own memories. The war trafficker sighed. I will give you a crystal device that can transfer memories. Of course, I've already done something to it. As long as Zhun Jin uses this device, all of his memories will be secretly copied. It's best if he does it willingly. If you force him, there will be flaws in the memory copy. As for how to make him willingly do it, I'm sure you can do it. ZD will do her best to not disappoint Sir War Trafficker's expectations. ZD bowed and half knelt on the ground. This attitude made both the War Trafficker and Sharp Diamond very satisfied. A few days later, in a warehouse at the docks. Sir, this is the substitute I prepared for you. ZD smiled next to him. Unbelievable. Too unbelievable. How could you find such a perfect substitute? Jinjin exclaimed. ZD had a smile on her face, but her mood was very complicated. Who would have thought that the Confusion Island was actually in this part of the sea? The trip to the Confusion Island had a huge impact on her life. From now on, my life is linked to yours? ZD silently stared at the substitute. ZD and I are connected by marriage. I am a holy knight, and the only successor of the 100 Needles family. They won't dare to harm me. With this thought, Zhun Jin trusted ZD a lot. According to ZD's plan, Zhun Jin created a memory crystal and disguised himself as Heiwan. Haha, he laughed happily. Then let's get down to business. Continue to work hard to become a noble's wife. With your identity and bloodline, it won't be easy. I will remember Sir's words in my heart. ZD replied. After the pig's kiss sailed for a while. Late at night, in the captain's room, the captain fell softly to the ground, looking at ZD in front of him in horror. What happened? His whole body was paralyzed. He couldn't move. I was very careful. I was loose on the outside and tight on the inside. I was always monitoring you. How did you poison me? ZD smiled and looked at the ink bottle on the table. Sir Captain, you have to send a letter to the Holy Knight Fin E almost every 3 days, reporting Father Scab and our information. This kind of expensive ink, are you used to it? The captain stared at the ink. You used it to poison me? Impossible. I've been using this ink for a long time. Why did I only get poisoned now? ZD shook her head. You don't need to know more, because it involves a certain knowledge of the barbarian's herbs. You can rest in peace. No, wait. I can rely on you, rely on the 100 Needles family. Don't kill me. If you kill me, how can you smoothly go to the wilderness continent? Without the captain, the pig's kiss will be very dangerous. The captain hurriedly begged for mercy. ZD pulled out the rapier she had already prepared. If you were just monitoring us, I would have let it go. Unfortunately, you have deliberately slowed the voyage these days. The longer the delay, the more unfavorable it will be for us. After saying that, with a light sound, the rapier, with the help of magic, easily pierced through the captain's body. You will regret. Before the captain died, his eyes were wide open. full of malevolence. There was fear in the face of death, and also the viciousness of revenge. Not good. ZD immediately realized that the captain must have some kind of countermeasure. Almost in the next moment, the magic device of the pig's kiss was activated. The whole hull broke into two. Damn it! ZD hurriedly ran out of the captain's cabin. She used invisibility magic. The chaotic crowd didn't notice her at all. However, just as she was running toward the Golden Needle cabin, she suddenly stopped in her tracks and stood there in shock. The magic contract was suddenly broken. The war dealer's joke rang in ZD's mind again. This made her realize an inconceivable fact. The war dealer was dead. This is impossible. But the magic contract was indeed broken. The war dealer wouldn't do this for no reason. He's dead. What happened on the Mystery Island? I want to go and see. I must go and see. Some kind of huge change must have happened on the Mystery Island. If the war dealer and Sharp Diamond didn't die, they will definitely find me again in the future. If they only have one breath left, I will decide on the spot whether to save or kill them. If they are all dead, doesn't it mean that the alchemy industry on the Mystery Island will be taken over by me? Yes. I want to go to the island. I still have the 18th level of authority. I must go to the island as soon as possible. P.S. This chapter was changed at the last minute. Almost a bug was written. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.